Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to another breaking news stream. And right now, we're following a very big, live, literally an active situation right now. Apparently, explosions, very large explosions, are being reported on Iranian coastline and also at their naval base of Bandar Abbas. We're currently getting reports of air defense being heard across Iranian airspace, and also reports of drones in their airspace. And now we're seeing that U.S. Air Force tanker aircraft and apparently fighter jets are now scrambling to the area. And right now, we're not really sure exactly who has attacked Iran, but somebody has, and right now Iran's going berserk. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the breaking news developments that have just occurred over the past 30 to 40 minutes, as news has emerged from the area of the Strait of HORMUZ that currently significant strikes are being conducted against Iranian port facilities, including the port of Bandar Abbas, port facilities on Qeshm Island, and also some IRGC facilities near to the small town of Sirik on the eastern side of the Strait of HORMUZ. We've also additionally heard that the Iranians have confirmed that armed attacks and explosions are being conducted on their soil within the area, and currently air defense forces are attempting to engage the forces that are attacking them. Currently, the Islamic Republic of Iran has blamed the United Arab Emirates for the attacks, which is unclear at the moment as to whether or not they are being conducted by the UAE. It is something interesting to see at a moment, that we can hear, and I do once again want to make it clear, folks, that they are claiming that it's the United Arab Emirates. It is not confirmed to be the United Arab Emirates. It is possible that it may be the U.S. or someone else. However, Israel has claimed that they're not involved in the attack so far, and we've also seen that a significant number of tankers of the U.S. Air Force are currently scrambling out of Israel and the United Arab Emirates and getting into the air as rapidly as possible to be able to respond to the now developing situation. All of this just came hours after news emerged that Kuwait and Saudi Arabia were once again going to be allowing U.S. military operations in their airspace and on their soil by U.S. forces after it had been found out that the Saudi Arabians and the Kuwaitis had been enraged by the lack of a U.S. response due to the attacks that were conducted after Project Freedom was commenced. But we actually have breaking news coming out at this moment right now. Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so we're trying to follow this the best we can right now. To just quickly say this for what we know right now, we know that there's been explosions on Iran's coastline. We know that the Iranians are claiming they exchanged fire with the U.S. Navy, and they're alleging that the U.S. Navy apparently fired at one of the Iranian oil tankers in the area. And now we're getting word that Iran's claiming that at Qeshm Island, which is right next to the toll booth, which they currently have set up in the Strait of Hormuz, they're claiming that apparently small drones are showing up in droves, and right now their air defenses on Qeshm Island are trying to shoot down these drones coming in from some unknown source. So that's what we're hearing right now. Apparently they're actively engaging drones from somewhere, but that's the big question right now. We don't know where this attack is originating from. Apparently they're in a firefight with the U.S. Navy from the sounds of it, but there's somebody else involved, and it could be the UAE, it could be Israel, it could be somebody else. Israel has formally denied involvement, so that's a bit interesting. So, maybe it's true. Maybe the Iranians are actually being truthful when they say it could be the UAE. It could be them, possibly. You can't really tell right now.
Right now, we do have to make it incredibly clear, folks, that the fog of war is pretty extreme in this situation as to who is involved, what forces and units are currently conducting strikes and defensive actions, both in Iran and on our side, as we only have at this moment the most concrete information that we're working off of is that there are confirmed attacks and explosions to have occurred in 3 locations around the area of the Strait of Hormuz. Outside of that, we actually do not know who is behind these attacks, what they have hit, what kind of ordnance they used to hit these targets, what type of vehicles were used to deliver the ordnance, or any of the other external forces or developments that is involved in these larger strikes that are being conducted right now. So this story quite literally is fresh off of the presses. We have almost nothing to go off of right now, except for the verified hardcore fact that there are strikes and explosions currently happening in the Strait of Hormuz against the Iranians. And Matthew, what else do we have in breaking news?
Okay, so believe it or not, I actually have a video showing the Iranian air defenses being activated in western Iran right now. I'm not exactly sure which city this came from, but it is generally toward the coast. So Enforcer, go take a look at this. It's currently, I just put in the likes tab on our Twitter page right now. It looks like there is some active engagement of some type of foreign objects in the sky of western Tehran right now. Or not, excuse me, not western Tehran, but western Iran, that is. So take a look at that video and let's show the audience that.
One second, let me make sure to put this down on the map here really quickly so that way we can make sure to have everyone able to follow this as it's happening live on air, so that we can go and click on the link in the description below and see everything that we've documented so far. But this appears to be air defense activity that's ongoing right now in western Iran. And we see as they look out into the distance what appears to be anti-aircraft fire, most likely from gun-based systems on the ground, and also the proximity fuses in the shells exploding at a certain altitude, showing that right now there is ongoing air defense within the western area of Iran at this moment right now. Importantly, we do have to note that there has been no confirmed impacts or any activity, militant activity, within western Iran at this moment, meaning that this air defense fire, or the reports of air defense fire from the western area of the country, are actually in the middle of a bubble. All of the strikes that we've been able to confirm so far have happened inside the Strait of Hormuz, and this may be suggesting that the Iranians have now detected some form of aircraft flying into their country through the western side of their border, or they may be seeing that there are airstrikes within this area that we have not yet able to report that are now currently being conducted against major cities within the western area of the country. We're not entirely sure as of which, but we have been able to hear at this moment in time, to give you all a little bit of information on current force deployments, that ADSB, or it is ADSB, correct, Matthew? I want to make sure that I'm saying that correctly. ADSB transponders.
Yeah, for aircraft, transponder data is an ADSB, and there's also some other forms of ADSB transponders, but for the ships, it's AIS.
Good, okay, I was just wanting to make sure. According to ADSB transponder data, we can see a significant amount of KC-135 tankers did go up in the air just a little while ago, and if we were to filter ourselves down to military air traffic alone, we can see the number of aerial tankers that are currently up and operational at this moment, including a Royal Air Force KC-2 Voyager, which may be suggesting that there is an ongoing military operation, because we can now note that the British are currently conducting some form of an air patrol within the area, most likely to protect RAF Akrotiri and Dhekelia. But we actually have more breaking news coming out at this moment right now. Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so it looks like, and go to our likes tab real quick, by the way. You should be able to have the post right here. So we are getting some video here claiming to show apparently drone activity over the Tehran region of Iran. This is being alleged to be in the Tehran Pars district of Tehran, which I believe is a higher end part of town inside of the capital city inside of Iran. So it looks like there are some preliminary reports that there might be active air defense engaging these hostile targets over Tehran right now. But it looks like we're seeing reports of Western Tehran under a drone threat. We're seeing Tehran itself under a drone threat. And we're also still getting reports of apparently fighter jet activity on the Iranian coast. So whatever is happening right now, it is definitely not dying down. It's still ongoing as we speak. So right now there's a big fog around who's doing this, but it appears to be the U.S. is likely involved in it. I would assume they're involved in it right now, but we're not sure who the second party is that's involved in it. That's the unknown right now.
And that is correct. We also have been able to hear that while these drones have been spotted over Tehran just minutes ago, there is a significant amount, not just of British aerial activity, Invader 39, which is their only aerial tanker that's currently up and operational, and appears to be possibly doing racetracks over central northern Syria at this moment, most likely in refueling support operations. We also can note a humongous number of aerial tankers that are currently up and operational for the United States. Naming them off, we have right now at this moment about 6 KC-135s that are currently active over Israel and Jordan. It does appear that a significant amount of them have just taken off from Tel Aviv or from the surrounding area and are currently making their way into the theater. This one actually came from Chania in Crete, showing that these aircraft have been up and running for some time, and we can also confirm that it appears that the RC-135 rivet joint is now active on the tarmac as well, and does appear that it may be attempting to take off here in the near future. We've also been able to see that there is a significant amount of aerial tankers up in the United Arab Emirates as well, in similar number. But we have breaking news coming out at this moment about a U.S. destroyer at this time. And Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so I was hesitant to report this originally because the Iranians were claiming this was the case, but now it appears to be that the Israeli sources are also echoing the same report as well. According to the IDF military radio that we're seeing right here, they say that as far as they understand, Iran apparently attacked a U.S. missile destroyer after the U.S. attacked an Iranian oil tanker just about an hour ago. Israel is closely monitoring the developments right now, but I do want to mention that Iran also claimed that they attacked some U.S. Navy vessel. They say they retaliated on a U.S. Navy vessel. So this seems to be lining up with that generally. So right now, this is looking a lot more probable than it did just about 30 minutes ago. It sounds like a U.S. missile destroyer might have gotten hit or at least attacked by the Iranian coastal defenses. So we're waiting to see what happened with that. But apparently, from the story we're hearing, it sounds like the U.S. Navy might have been trying to enforce the U.S. blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. They apparently fired at an Iranian oil tanker, and then the Iranians started opening fire from the sounds of it. And that was when we first heard of explosions on the coast, and apparently that was the event that led to it. And then from there, hell broke loose, it sounds like. So that's what I can gather.
Right now, at the moment, we do know that there are 2 U.S. guided missile destroyers of the Arleigh Burke class, which have been operational around and within the Strait of Hormuz over recent days, according to Iranian and U.S. reports, and also open source intelligence satellite photography, which has been found online, that would suggest that it could be likely the USS Frank Peterson that has been possibly engaged by the Islamic Republic of Iran here recently, and it does appear that all corroboration at this moment is coming out from both our side and the Iranian side that a U.S. destroyer has been fired upon by the IRGC and has either been hit or was able to ward off the attack and is currently moving back out of the area of the Strait of Hormuz, most likely at full speed, to be able to try and get as far away as possible from the anti-ship forces near to the coastline. Right now, this situation inside the Strait of Hormuz is an incredibly tricky one, especially for larger ocean-going surface combatants like the Arleigh Burkes, as they are generally not designed for the littoral warfare style of fighting that we see in the Strait of Hormuz right now. The area of the Strait of Hormuz is largely a bathtub in size for what is an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, meaning that any kinds of threats that are fired at it are usually well within the very last miles of the second air defense ring, or the last line of defense of the vessel. The Sea Whizzes are basically some of the only air defenses that are available to be able to shoot down incoming Iranian threats, meaning that the margin for error is incredibly low because of that second ring of air defense, and the first ring does not get the incoming threat. Then that means it will most likely hit the ship. This makes naval operations within this area at the moment, due to the fact that Iran's anti-ship forces are largely intact and have not been challenged or heavily destroyed by U.S. air operations prior, difficult, because the U.S. is having to deal with a large amount of threats at a very short range and distance, and a singular or two Arleigh-Burkes, or a singular vessel like I was just about to say, may be the only ones able to deal with the threat at this moment right now. It's a fairly hairy situation, but to get us a little bit more updates on this, we had heard of the story a little while ago, and we weren't going to report it as a hard-on fact, because it did appear that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had stated the following just about an hour ago. A senior military official of the IRGC stated, following the aggression of the U.S. invading army against an Iranian oil tanker, the enemy's attacking units in the Strait of Hormuz area came under Iranian missile fire and, after sustaining damage, were forced to flee. We do have to make it incredibly clear that the one thing we can say is a fact at this point is that a destroyer of some type was attacked. Whether it was hit and sustained any damage is completely unknown at this moment, and we do not believe the Iranian claim at this time that the vessel has been damaged until we can get some further corroborating proof to be able to prove whether it was damaged or not. At the moment, though, we do have breaking news that's coming out at this time, even further on the situation. Matthew, what do we got?
You say it was a hard-on attack. You say that's a different type of attack. You don't ever want to have an attack like that. That's the type right there you don't want to deal with.
Ryan was up there on his tiny post.
I'll tell you what. No, but anyways, though, we do have some breaking news right now. All jokes aside, apparently a senior Iranian official, Ibrahim Azizi, has apparently made a Twitter post here, and here's what he says in it. He said, "Making the same mistake again and again won't get you a different answer, only a stronger one." He appears to be directing this at the U.S. Navy, by the way. He said, "Respect the new maritime regime of Iran, #Persian Gulf." So that is what's coming out right now. That appears to be directed at the United States Navy from the sounds of it. And that seems to also line up with the reports that apparently the Iranian forces engaged the U.S. Navy right off their coast. So they're once again running at the mouth right now. So they're already making some pretty strong statements. But we still have no clarification who is conducting the aerial attacks that we're currently hearing about. We don't know who's doing that. And right now, Iran is maintaining that it's the UAE that's conducting those attacks. But we don't have independent verification of that information.
And we do not have any verification of those claims. To get to it really quickly, because I'm kind of bouncing around the map right now of what we have at the moment, we were able to hear that the Iranians did claim just recently the following information about the ongoing attacks around the area of the Bahman Qeshm dock. Some sources say that the sound of several explosions at Bandar Abbas was related to air defense countering 2 drones. Also, some sources report the hostile action of the UAE government acting as a tool of the Zionist regime at the Bahman Qeshm dock. The issue has not yet been officially confirmed or announced. If this matter is confirmed, the UAE will pay the price for its hostile actions, like it hasn't been already over the past few days when the Iranians were blowing out their oil loading terminals at Fujairah again. So it does appear that the Iranians are largely believing at this moment that it may highly likely be the United Arab Emirates, but we also would understand that at this moment there is or has been an armed engagement between the IRGC and the United States Navy inside the Strait of Hormuz, highly likely against the USS Frank E. Peterson, a Arleigh-Burke class guided missile destroyer, which has been operational within the area of the Strait of Hormuz and has been conducting passages through the area over the past week. So we do understand that that is the current situation at the moment. We do not know about the condition of the Iranian tanker, which the IRGC brought up briefly, about the United States attempting to attack somewhere near to the area of Bandar Abbas to be able to stop it from making it to an Iranian port. We're unclear as to what vessel that is or what its name is, but if we go to marine traffic, we might be able to get a little bit more information on it. In the meantime, however, we have more breaking news that is coming out. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so we are definitely getting some more information right here. We are hearing right now that there is more anti-aircraft activity in northwest Tehran. That's happening right this minute, so that's pretty interesting as well. Also, let's see here. I might have another video here of a possible aircraft over Tehran. Let's take a look at this first, and I'll get to the other news we're getting from Israel right now. Let's take a look at Tehran. Right now over their skies, we're hearing of active air defense activity. Apparently, we do have a video from about an hour ago showing one of these unknown aircraft in the sky. So let's take a look at this one real quick. I just reposted it, and let's see if we can, determine anything out of this. It appears to be a very blurry picture or video taken from a car, but let's take a look.
Got you. And here's our clip right now.
What could that be? A drone or something? I mean, it's rather silent. I don't hear any like fighter jet noise from the car, at least.
Well, if it's tens of thousands of feet up, which usually larger conventional drones like we use here in the US or the UAE or any allied country, if it's one of those, it's most likely so high up that you would never be able to hear it, and they're most likely propeller driven. That's, of course, taking a lot of ifs as an assumption. It may be jet powered, but that's highly unlikely. Usually those are a lot more expensive, far larger in size, and operate in relative safety due to the expensive cost of a single unit, like, for example, the MQ-4 Triton. So we believe that it's most likely a propeller-driven drone at an incredibly high altitude that may be conducting reconnaissance, because we haven't heard of any confirmed strikes within Tehran, but this does seem to be showing us a reoccurring incident where a large number of conventional reconnaissance drones fly over Tehran on a near daily basis at this point and are apparently surveilling the city over and over on almost a 24-hour basis. So that's what I'd assume it is, but once again, that's taking a lot of ifs. It also just looks to be a glowing orb as usual, so very hard to make anything out of that rather than it's the orb of judgment.
Yeah, also, by the way, apparently, with what I'm hearing right now, the Iranians are opening fire with AA guns on the ground. That's their version of air defense they're currently using. So I would assume that there must be some lower targets that are a little bit lower in the airspace above Tehran, because otherwise it'd be very, very hard to hit anything that high up with an AA gun. So I would assume there's some stuff that's lower from the sounds of it. But we are hearing right this minute of more active ongoing air defense fire over northwestern Tehran and also near Tehran as well in that district of the capital city. But moving on from this, though, we'll come back to the Tehran situation in just a minute. We are getting word that Israeli journalists are saying that Iran may have targeted 2 U.S. destroyers while they were trying to leave the Strait of Hormuz. Remember this, the other day we saw in satellite images that it appeared to be that 2 U.S. destroyers were sitting on the northern end of the Strait of Hormuz, right off the coast of the UAE. It sounds like, according to Israel, that those destroyers were trying to make their way back out of the Strait of Hormuz and back down to the southern part of the strait, when apparently they tried to engage an Iranian oil tanker from the sounds of it, and then the Iranians opened fire as the destroyers were going through the strait. So we don't know if there's damage on those destroyers, and in fact, we're still trying to get more corroboration of this. We've heard it from the Iranians, and we've heard it from the Israelis, but we're trying to see if there's any damage on board those destroyers right now. So that appears to be maybe what sparked the whole thing, was these destroyers trying to go back through the strait after they got stuck on the northern end of it. So, Enforcer, what do you make of that?
It appears that that's highly likely. It may have been the fact that they were attempting to restart Project Freedom, which was short-lived, only about 36 hours or less time from its announcement to its cancellation prior, and they may have been attempting to stop another Iranian ship from making it to an Iranian port, and apparently they got the incredibly cavalier order of just sailing straight into the middle of the Hormuz without it being cleared out preliminarily, and then started to fire upon this tanker to stop it from getting into a port. I'm guessing that at this point, most coastal defenses when the area start opening fire on the warships, and I would also assume that as a result of that, they are currently trying to steam at full speed back out of the Strait of Hormuz towards its eastern side, towards the Gulf of Oman, to be able to try and avoid being in what is basically at this point the gauntlet, as they are quite literally surrounded on 3 sides by Iranian coastal defense batteries, which are most likely firing at them continuously at this point as they're attempting to leave the strait, which will be putting significant strain on the crew's response and fire control capabilities, and also putting a significant strain on the munitions on board to be able to protect the vessel from such attacks that are incoming, most likely still at this moment. So that seems to be highly likely the case. Once again, folks, we do not know both of the destroyers by their whole number, but we do know that one of these destroyers is the USS Frankie Peterson, which is hull number 121, but we do not know what the second Burke is by name and hull number at the moment. So we're still waiting on further information on this at the moment, but it does appear that from all sources, the Israelis and also the Iranians, there appears to have been some sort of an ongoing firefight that's happening right now between 2 Arleigh Burkes, which highly aligns to what we already knew by satellite photography near Dubai, and the Iranian coastal defense forces along the coastline of the Strait of Hormuz as well.
Yeah, and also, by the way, I do want to bring this up. I see a lot of people mentioning this in the chat. We did get news this morning from a pretty reputable outlet that apparently a Chinese large refined products tanker was also struck by an Iranian projectile. That apparently happened. Let's see here. Apparently happened this past Monday, so just about 4 days ago or so. Apparently, the Iranians fired on a Chinese vessel that was carrying products on board of it. So it says here that apparently it's the first time that a Chinese vessel was struck by an Iranian fire since the conflict began, and the vessel reportedly has a Chinese owner and a crew, and the Iranians still decided to target even a Chinese vessel. So that's very fascinating. I thought China was helping out Iran, but it sounds like maybe Iran's not very loyal, perhaps. But that's a pretty interesting story right there. So apparently they're firing at everybody. They're not really discriminating. They're just taking it out on everybody, from the sounds of it.
Sounds as though they believe in the concept of equal rights and equal lefts, from what we can hear, because they are quite literally taking the chance to shoot at everybody that's trying to go through the strait, and they are largely enforcing a complete closure of the blockade like we were understanding prior. As a matter of fact, if we look at marine traffic and we also listen to the reports from the day, quite literally 0 ships have attempted the passage through the Strait of Hormuz over the course of the past 24 hours, which is the lowest transit number that we've seen so far. I would also like to point out the amazing vessel, the AL Gashimia, which is a liquefied natural gas tanker, which is currently sailing through the southern desert of Iran at this moment, just to point that one out. Definitely some GPS spoofing going on with this, because a tanker of that size does not go anywhere in there. Generally not enough water for it to move around, so a little bit of an issue there. But moving us on from that, and also the marine traffic news, we are continuing to watch the ongoing developing situation within this area. We also were able to hear that according to a Pentagon official this morning, they stated to the Wall Street Journal that Project Freedom could restart as early as this week, meaning that at any point in time now, we may be seeing that Project Freedom restarts, and it may have just restarted just a moment ago, but we actually have even more breaking news coming out at this time. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so we are getting word that apparently it sounds like there's been 3 blasts. We just heard, of course, I just reported a second ago that in northwestern Tehran, we were seeing some unknown hostile aircraft flying over the airspace, and we also had reports of anti-aircraft activity from guns on the ground. We're hearing that apparently 3 blast sounds have been heard in western Tehran, and also there's more anti-aircraft activity taking place as well. So something is going on in Tehran. There's clearly something going on. Either Iran is firing at surveillance drones, and maybe that's what the blasts are, or there could be impacts on the ground inside of Tehran right now. We're not totally sure. We can't confirm it yet, and we're waiting on some sort of video evidence to come out showing what's happening right now in the capital. But something is going down, though. We're waiting to see what that is. In the meantime, though, I was trying to grab one more story here, but sadly it kind of slipped away from me there for a second. So I'll give it back to you. Well, actually, hold on a second. Let's see here. So, okay, that's never mind. It's not, I thought it was a video of the attacks right here, but it's not, sadly. So, unfortunately, I'm going to give it back to you and keep doing some research here. I might have another story here in just a second.
In the meantime, we will be talking about some of the further developments that we were able to hear, as we did get to see the claims of the firefight between the IRGC and the U.S. Navy just a little bit earlier, and also to cover the reports of the explosions that we've seen along the coastline of the Strait of Hormuz. There were reports that came out of explosions within the town of Sirik. Reports indicate that 6 explosions were heard 40 seconds apart in Sirik, which is in the HORMUZ province of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Additionally, we also were able to see that there were some significant explosions that appeared to have happened in Bandar Abbas, but some others had claimed that the explosions were only mere echoes of the ones happening down in the town of Sirik. However, we did get to confirm that there were explosions and strikes that had been conducted within the area of Qeshm Island, as news came out that the Bahman dock on Qeshm Island was targeted by multiple projectiles, but it remains unclear who is behind the attack when that news was announced, and it is still unclear at this moment as to who is behind the attacks that are currently being conducted. There is a further confirmation that came out from Tasnim reports of the explosions at the Bahman dock in Qeshm Island, and we've also confirmed that the IRGC-owned Fars News Network put out the following statement that a fire was exchanged between the IRGC and an enemy force around the area of the Bahman commercial dock in Bandar Abbas. Commercial sections appear to have been the ones that were targeted by these strikes. The strikes and explosions were large enough that some eyewitness reports on the surrounding area of the island did claim that the explosions were strong enough to actually shake their houses, and the Iranian Iranians claim that some of that was actually air defense activity. We also were able to see that statement here from eyewitnesses claiming that the explosions were strong enough that they shook the structures that they were inside of, giving us an understanding that whatever explosions are being or happening on Qeshm Island are incredibly large in scale and apparently large enough to be able to start rocking buildings and towns around the surrounding area wherever the explosions are being conducted, most likely showing us that significant amounts of ordnance are currently being used by whatever country is conducting these strikes. But we actually have more details coming about from the U.S. Navy's firefight with the IRGC just recently. And Matthew, what are we hearing about that?
Okay, so this is being reported by IRGC affiliated media right now. This is what they're saying on their channels. It appears to be most likely on Telegram, it looks like. A military official inside of Iran is claiming that following the U.S. military's attack on an Iranian tanker, the enemy's attacking units in the Strait of Hormuz came under Iranian missile fire, which is also what Israel is claiming right now as well. And apparently, the U.S. Navy was forced to flee after suffering damage. So the Iranians are claiming they damaged the ship. But I want to say this, though, we got to take that with a grain of salt, because Iran also claims they destroyed and hit one of our aircraft carriers, and they never did that. That was just completely fake, and they made that up. So it's hard to tell if they've suffered damage or not. Unfortunately, we can't expect the U.S. to be transparent about it and tell us simply what happened or make a statement about it. They're probably going to say no comment. So right now we're waiting on some sort of independent verification of this, but it's kind of hard to say with certainty whether or not the Iranians are being truthful, because they like to lie and use propaganda quite heavily on stuff like this. So it's kind of hard to tell, but that is apparently the update with the destroyers going through the strait. So a lot of fog of war around this, to say the least. Also, moving on from that, and while we wait for more details on it, we also have some more details about the air defense activity in western Tehran. It looks like some individuals on the ground, eyewitnesses inside of Tehran, are saying they can't tell if they're hearing air defense or they're hearing explosions inside the city. And that's notable, because those folks inside of Tehran, they know what an explosion sounds like. So, apparently they can't tell the difference right now. They're saying the sounds are not regular and they're not consecutive inside of western Tehran. And they say they're hearing distant explosions and possibly explosions closer to western Tehran itself. So it appears to be, like I said, something is definitely going on inside Tehran, but we simply don't have the video evidence at this very moment. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that this is quite a significant occurrence at the moment. It does appear that we can largely confirm that there is some sort of a larger airstrike campaign that is most likely ongoing right now on the Iranians. There are strikes around Hormuz and strikes within Tehran. And if we were to take this as the stepping stone to larger operations, this may be the beginning of planned amphibious operations by the United States. But once again, folks, that's a huge jump, because we haven't really been able to confirm much more right now than there was a skirmish in the Hormuz. Some port facilities have been hit by large explosions, and now we're hearing of explosions in Tehran. That's really all we have to go off of at the moment. But if I was the one preparing for an amphibious operation inside the Strait of Hormuz, this largely would be the preliminary air operations that would need to be conducted to start moving towards that sort of a groundwork of getting an amphibious operation going of that type of nature, to be able to take the islands inside the Strait of Hormuz and to be able to create a bit of a buffer zone or a barrier that would allow for our warships to have a larger window of response time to incoming Iranian attacks in the area. So that might be the case. It might also be the United Arab Emirates is finally responding after the Iranian attacks that were conducted on them recently, because we also understand that the Gulf state nations were infuriated at the United States to such a degree that they actually denied the United States just hours ago usage of their bases and their airspace for military operations. And according to information that came out earlier this morning, the reasoning why they did that is because when the Iranians fired back because of Project Freedom and started blowing up facilities inside the UAE, the Gulf state nations actually became infuriated because the U.S. said that the ceasefire is still intact, the Iranian attacks are mostly peaceful, and the whole ceasefire is perfectly fine and dandy and nothing's wrong and everything's good. That pissed all of them off so much, particularly Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, that they actually barred the United States from conducting any further military operations in their nations until the U.S. stated to them that they were going to be changing how they respond to such similar stimuli as an Iranian attack in the future like that, in the upcoming present day. So it does appear that at the moment we are getting a larger understanding that maybe the United Arab Emirates actually attacking Iran to be able to respond to the attacks that Iran conducted on them just days ago. In the meantime, though, we can see a large amount of tankers that are still up and operational. And also, one thing that's incredibly interesting to note, folks, is that some of them have turned off their transponders. Just a minute ago, we were seeing that there were 6 KC-135s around the area of Jordan, Israel. Now we're only seeing 4. Those aircraft did not land. They had just taken off. So this means that they're most likely entering combat operations at this point right now.
Also, look at that. I mean, look at how many tanker aircraft are lurking over the UAE. I mean, they're literally contained in the UAE like a bathtub right now, the way they're in there. I mean, it's like a whole bunch of them. And are these all U.S. Air Force tankers, or who are these? It appears to be most of them probably are here. Yeah, it looks like all of them are actually. So that's a hell of a lot of tanker activity over the UAE right now. That could indicate, and this is a bit of a leap of faith, so take this with a grain of salt. I'm just sort of spitballing right now about what this could be. This could indicate that maybe it was the UAE that attacked Iran. It could be maybe they were the ones to do it, and the United States is preemptively putting the tankers in the air to prepare for the Iranian retaliation that could be coming soon, and they're getting the air defenses ready to defend against those incoming Iranian drones and missiles. That could be it, but once again, that's a bit of a leap of faith, so take that with a grain of salt. But this is a lot of aircraft active over this one little area right here over the UAE.
It certainly is, and we can see that the first time this aircraft showed up on flight radar was 6:41, which would have been, let's see here, that would have been about almost an hour ago at this point. So this aircraft has been up in the air for about an hour. The story has been happening for about an hour or so. And it looks like we would most likely assume that most of these other tankers also took off during this time. It also appears that one is now traveling at warp speed over Oman, which means that it's getting faulty ADS-B transponder data at the moment right now. So hopefully we get something better on that here in the near future. Nevertheless, there we go. It actually just updated itself. Nevertheless, we would assume that at this moment, the United Arab Emirates may have actually been the one responsible for the attacks against Iranian port facilities inside the Strait of Hormuz, as the United Arab Emirates is close in proximity, and the UAE is geared to be able to conduct operations well within this range, if not even farther, inside of the area of the Strait of Hormuz. We can also see as well that the KC-135s appear to have taken off and gone airborne around the time that the attacks began, most likely suggesting that the United States was not conducting the attacks and is only responding to the situation and attempting to get aircraft off of the ground, so that way when the responding Iranian attack happens, U.S. aircraft aren't sitting ducks waiting to be blown up at the airfields. We actually have more breaking news coming out at this moment right now. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so we have our first videos out of Tehran apparently showing anti-aircraft fire being seen. This is very up-close footage, by the way, so we can actually see kind of generally what's happening a little bit, but we can't sadly see the ground, so I can't geolocate anything. But we are hearing that right now that there are still continuous air defense fire non-stop inside of Tehran right now, and they're shooting at something. This is not just a false alarm. They're clearly shooting at something. But let's take a look at the video and see what we can spot.
We see the shell's proximity fusing in the air above the city. And also the sound of the explosions as well. This is clearly giving us an understanding that right now Tehran is apparently under some form of an attack, as we're now hearing that this anti-aircraft fire is continuous, and apparently has been continuous over the last 40 to 30 minutes. This is such a long duration of time for the air defenses to be active and firing that it appears that they've actually confirmed that there is some sort of an aerial threat, and strikes have most likely been confirmed within Tehran, and as a result, the air defense is conducting their usual spray and pray tactics, hoping that eventually they find something in the darkness of the night and hit it and destroy it before it can hit a target below inside of the city. So this is largely confirming at this time that the city of Tehran is under some form of an attack by somebody, but we don't know who still yet. Also, by the way, Matthew, could we look around and see really quickly if any official accounts of the United Arab Emirates or the United States have made any announcements at this point of ongoing military operations? Because this has been going on now for about an hour, or possibly a little bit closer to an hour and 15 minutes, and generally someone most likely would have made a statement right now that they are conducting hostile actions at this point, and if they haven't, that would be kind of odd.
Yeah, let's see here. So right now, I'm looking around. I'm not seeing anything off the bat that the UAE is saying about this. Also, generally, the UAE is very secretive about stuff like this. They don't like to tell people what's going on, and also they don't like people recording what's going on either. They'll arrest you for that now, apparently. So they like to keep things secret. So if they've launched something, they're probably not going to announce it. And also, the United States is not exactly known for its transparency right now when it comes to being completely upfront with the public. So we can't really rely on either one of those sources to say what's going on. The Iranians are gung ho to tell people what's going on, but you got to take them with a grain of salt because they love to put out their narrative first,
We got
so they can try
breaking
to spin
news.
it the way they want it. Oh yeah, we do.
According to Jennifer Griffin from Fox News, she has stated that according to a U.S. official who was just spoken to her 2 minutes ago, the U.S. military just carried out strikes on Iran's Qeshm port and Bandar Abbas, according to a senior U.S. official, but this is not a restarting of the war. So that appears to be our first report that we've seen, at least alleged to be from a U.S. official, is that these are actually U.S. strikes that are currently being conducted right now inside the Strait of Hormuz, but apparently bombing Iran isn't restarting the war. Apparently, so that's news to me. I thought bombing someone was the beginning of a war.
What's she mean by strikes? Does she mean like aircraft strikes, or is she talking about like strikes from the ships on the ports? Or what are we talking about? Because the Israelis and Iran is saying that apparently the U.S. opened fire on a tanker, apparently right off Iran's coast. So I'm not sure if they're calling that strikes. It's kind of a little bit unclear. It's a little bit vague with that right there. So. Also, by the way, yeah, you're right. How is this not a restarting of the war? I mean, when you fire on a foreign country, I mean, that technically usually starts a conflict. So I'm not sure how this is not restarting the war. It seems like a bit of an antithesis.
Say it with me, everybody. The attacks on Iran are mostly peaceful. Yippee. But beyond that.
Also, by the way, while we're waiting on this vague post right here from some of the people here in the United States, we also see another video coming out of nonstop air defense activity in western Tehran right now. And there's people saying is an attack. We don't know if it's an attack or not right now. There's something going on, but it could be simply surveillance drones. But take a look at this one.
We once again see heavy volumes of air defense fire over western Tehran. This, interestingly enough, is not over Tehran Pars. This is actually on the opposite side of the city. But a humongous volume of air defense fire currently being flung into the skies overhead.
That's a lot. For it to be nothing. I mean, that's a hell of a lot of air defense. I mean, I think at this point, folks, it's safe to say that Tehran is under some sort of attack, most likely, but we don't know who's behind it, and we don't know how big of an attack it is. But considering that they're saying that the U.S. apparently intentionally attacked the Iranian coastline, it's safe to say it's probably the United States. That's probably who it is. I would assume.
And it does appear that it most likely would be. You know, actually, I'm kind of getting an idea of what might be happening that's leading them to say something as goofy as, we just blew up the Iranians, but apparently this isn't starting the war. It most likely is the fact that those two U.S. destroyers went into the strait to stop that tanker. They fired upon the tanker. The Iranians started firing back at the U.S. warships, and then the U.S. aircraft, which are covering the warships, started air-to-ground strikes on those coastal forces inside of Bandar Abbas, Sirik, and also Qeshm, because that's generally where most of the coastal defenses would be, or generally in their broader area where they should be within the Strait of Hormuz. So that may be why they're saying that it's not restarting the war, is because they're about to come out here in a little bit, folks, and say that all of our bombings of the IRGC forces and their attack on our U.S. warships actually isn't a restarting of a war, which any sane and reasonable person would view it as the restarting of a war. It was only the United States trying to restart Project Freedom and freedom of navigation, and we're only responding defensively to the Iranians, although they're going out of their way to attack our warships, possibly damage them, wound and kill U.S. sailors in the process, and we also just bombed them. Oddly enough, none of that will amount to restarting the war, according to the United States, possibly. So that may be the running framework in the story that we might be seeing right now that has led to all of this commotion around the Strait of Hormuz with the bombings of the coastal forces, the firefight between the Navy and the coastal forces, and then also the air defense activity possibly happening against incoming attacks over Tehran at the moment.
Maybe so. It's just a bit of a strange situation. But I will say this: if they're calling this not a restarting of the war, what that might indicate is because we've heard reports about a week ago that the United States was going to start short and strong strikes on the Iranian regime, only for the sole purpose of basically prodding them to make a deal, which we had already kind of debated that was not going to be very effective, because you're not going to encourage diplomacy if you start hitting people with bombs. That's not going to usually lead to a deal. That usually leads to more more conflict. So it could be that the U.S. decided to maybe carry out that plan. It could have been maybe sparked by the idea that Iran fired on our destroyer. That might have sparked the operation initially. It's kind of hard to tell right now. Once again, the fog of war is very heavy about this. But I take all the statements with a grain of salt right now, especially the ones here for the United States as well. I take all of that with a grain of salt because it's just a strange thing that we hear about our destroyer allegedly getting struck or attacked, and then we hear the U.S. military saying, "Oh no, it's not that. It's actually that we're attacking Iran." It's like, well, which one is it? I mean, something started it, and was it the Iranians attacking that started it, or did we voluntarily, offensively start attacking Iran? Which one was it?
I also saw someone say that the phrasing is to avoid the War Powers Act, but the thing is that they don't have to avoid that. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, already stated when that vote was coming up, I believe on last Friday, that the United States isn't even in a war, therefore there is no vote that's needed under the War Powers Act, which was a clear misrepresentation of what the War Powers Act says, because the War Powers Act doesn't have to say that you're in a recognized state of war. It just says that you have to be in any form of hostilities of any type, or looking like you're about to conduct hostilities of any type. And that's when the timer technically starts, according to the War Powers Act. So the fact that they didn't even bring forward a vote to approve or shoot down the continuing military actions against Iran, because they're claiming that there is no war, means that they don't have to avoid the War Powers Act, because the Congress's interpretation is that although we're bombing a country and they're shooting back at us, we're not in a war to even require a vote on the War Powers Act. So they don't have to avoid it. They can continue military operations however they wish, and it wouldn't be a violation of the act. But outside of that, we actually have more news, apparently confirming that Tehran is under attack at the moment. And Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so Tehran is confirmed to be under attack, which is what we had just predicted a moment ago. Obviously, with all that air defense fire, it's pretty much impossible that Tehran was not under attack. So that was a pretty blatant one right there. We got that right because it was obvious. But Iranian state media is saying that they're engaging with hostile drones over Tehran. Apparently, they're still engaging them. By the way, we don't know if maybe the United States decided to launch Lucas attack drones at maybe Tehran. That could be a possibility, or maybe they're some other type of drones. Possibly, we're not totally sure yet. But Iran confirms they are engaging hostile drones over their skies right now. I do want to make this clear, though. We have not heard in the audio of any of these videos yet. We have not heard fighter jet activity. So it appears to be there is no active fighter jet attacks on Tehran. But it does appear to be, and also lines up with the videos that we saw, that there are drones currently engaging with Tehran right now.
And it does appear that we are confirming that there is an aerial defense scenario going on over Tehran, as they're attempting to shoot down what appear to be, in prior clips, high-altitude reconnaissance drones that are currently operating over the city. But I do have to make it clear that drones like the Predator and the Reaper are able to carry some limited forms of air-to-ground ordnance, including AGM-114 Hellfires, which may be suggesting that the explosions we're hearing on the ground may be precision strikes by those drones against Iranian officials or important Iranian facilities inside the city of Tehran. But once again, folks, we cannot confirm that absolutely just yet, but that is a decent explanation as to what's going on over Tehran at the moment right now, and the heavy air defense fire that we're seeing at this moment. In the meantime, Bandar Abbas is still under attack at this time, most likely by U.S. forces, as we're now beginning to hear. And Matthew, please tell us more information on those attacks right now.
Okay, so the U.S. military is now actively striking Iran's coastline, and also Bandar Abbas directly is also under attack. So this sounds like this could be fighter jet activity right here. It looks like for the first confirmed time, we were apparently hearing of aerial strikes, some pretty heavy strikes on the islands near Hormuz and also on the Iranian coastline as well. So that appears to be ongoing right now at this very moment. So that once again starts hacking away at the narrative that this is not a restarting of the war, because we're hearing apparently a second round of strikes on the coast. That's what we're hearing right now. So sadly, I wish we had video to show you right now, but this is happening literally right this second. We're also hearing that Larak Island is also under attack. They're hearing multiple loud explosions on Larak Island. So the toll booth is currently under attack. That's what we're gathering right now. The Iranian toll booth is near Qeshm and Larak Island. They have the ships pass right through that little area of water, and then they shake everybody down for money. That's the area right now that's currently being bombarded from the air. So that appears to be happening right this second. So we're waiting on some video possibly. I'm not sure if we'll get it, but we're waiting to see if we can get some.
Hopefully we'll be able to get some form of video or picture evidence. Larak Island is actually a fairly sparsely populated one. We only know of one settlement, which is the town of Larak. As many of y'all can see, mostly abandoned. There's one operational building here. There's also a park here. but nobody lives here. That hotel has a 2-star review, and the facilities, resources, and nature that God has given our people will soon be depleted, according to the one review in this abandoned town. I would assume so. We also can see that there is one other settlement within the area, which is apparently a town. It doesn't have a name, it appears. Maybe Bam-el-Iraq, maybe that's the name of the town, but it doesn't appear to have one directly as we try and zoom in on the location. But it's not a heavily populated island, but we do understand that it has been used to some extent by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' fast attack boat forces, which you can see some of the fast attack boats actually scattered around within the small port and the breakwaters, possibly suggesting that we're starting to blow up the fast attack boats finally, after several months of not doing that. We also understand that the area of Qeshm is quite similar in structure and design, as there are a couple of IRGC fast attack boats within this port as well, including these right here. You can actually see some of the moorings for the IRGC fast attack boats in that area, and you can also, I believe, see them elsewhere in some other areas of the port. Definitely not here, but I would have to try and look around and find exactly where they're storing most of them within that area. Bandar Abbas is also home to a significant amount of them as well, so this may be a coordinated attempt to destroy a large amount of IRGC attack boats.
It could be. Also, I do want to point something else out as well. We have not had a chance to get around to this yet, but we just released, the CIA just released an intelligence report earlier today saying that Iran can outlast the HORMUZ blockade that the U.S. is conducting for months. That's what the U.S. intelligence is currently saying right now, and it's in their assessment, their professional assessment, that Iran can last for many months while the U.S. continues this blockade on the southern end of the Strait of Hormuz. They're saying that they can withstand it for ages. So that's literally lining up with what we said to a large degree right there. So that's matching up pretty closely. That could also indicate as well, by the way, because that just came out this morning, that might have played into the U.S. decision to carry out some of these strikes. That might have played into it right there, is because they got that report this morning. So, it's really weird. We're pretty much on the nose with this stuff right here, and it seems like the U.S. is eventually catching on to it, the current leadership right now, but it looks like they're just catching up about right now.
Fellas, it only takes a multi-billion-dollar intelligence apparatus in the United States to come up with the same conclusion that we came up with a couple of weeks back here on the channel. Hey, I gotta tell y'all, folks, if we actually worked for the CIA, I would assume that they'd work a lot faster than they're working right now with getting out these kinds of reports, because we told y'all all, because now apparently we're working faster than the CIA, we told y'all all a while ago that blockades are for long-term wars of attrition, which we're certainly not trying to fight. We're not trying to be taken down economically with the Iranians, so faster action is required than a passive blockade which inflicts passive damage over a very long period of time, like a year or two. We need to be seeing faster actions that result in progress being made right now. So, just to put this out there to anyone right now who's in the agency that's listening, if you would like to hire us out for contracting work so that way we can get to that quicker and put out a report like that a little bit faster, let us know, because I think that'd be in the best interest of our nation if we were able to get to conclusions like that a little bit quicker than we are right now. But we'll see. Anyways.
Or they could just listen for free instead of having to pay you for it. They could just listen for free.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But I mean, they don't
It's probably cheaper.
But it would be nice to get that contracting money. But anyways, outside of that, it does appear that we're now getting an understanding that the blockade is going to be largely unsuccessful. And we also do have to keep in mind, everyone, right now, that at current rates of oil consumption here in the United States, if remaining unchanged, the United States will most likely start to run out of oil resources by mid-July, which will be seen that we will be going into significant economic recession, possibly a depression as a result, meaning that Iran will actually be lasting through the blockade longer than our oil supplies are, which forces our hand to restart military operations and clear out the straits. That way the ships can move, because we just don't have the time to wait. That just doesn't work in reality.
Yeah, I would say so. Also, another detail I want to bring up today: the U.S. president just had a phone call with the EU secretary, I believe. I forgot her exact title. It's Ursula von der Leyen. Yeah, that's the lady there. I can't remember her exact title right off the bat, but she's a high official in the EU. The president of the United States just had a phone call with her this morning, and it sounds like the U.S. and the EU reached an agreement about the situation with Iran and agreed that Iran must never possess a nuclear weapon, and they've also committed to work together and also committed to make sure the EU-US trade deal stays in place and is fully committed to on both sides. That's a pretty big shift, by the way, because the U.S. has been making a lot of nasty statements toward the EU over the past couple of weeks. And it sounds like they're starting to repair that relationship. And we're also seeing the United States start sweet-talking Zelensky as well. So there appears to be a bit of a flip happening for some reason. I'm sure there's a ulterior motive behind it. I'm pretty sure there is, but we don't know that in the public right now. So that is a bit interesting as well. But right now, though, we're hearing that apparently Bandar Abbas is still under attack right this minute. And also, there's still continuous air defense fire in western Tehran right this minute. So waiting to get some more updates on it, but that is what we know right now.
I would say there might be a change in how all that's going, because I think they're finally starting to get a little bit of an understanding about how bad the foreign policy has been over the past year, because of how everything's gone in the Middle East just over the past few months, because they've used the same approach in the Middle East that they've used against Europe, East Asia, and everybody else just for a couple of months at this point, and they've gotten they've gotten the entirety of the oil coming out of the Middle East blockaded, which is probably the worst one, and then they're also pissing people off so much that we gave guns to the Kurds, and they just disappeared. The Kurds literally just boosted the first batch of guns we gave them because they were so pissed off at us, and then we also got most of our Gulf state allies so pissed off at us yesterday that they started to deny military usage rights to their airspace and territory for the United States because they were communicating with them so little and considering them basically none at all in our foreign policy outlook or our current war actions against the Iranians, and also we're just completely lying and fibbing and just not even responding to Iranian attacks that were being conducted on them just a few days ago, and we were claiming that those Iranian attacks were mostly peaceful and they don't break the ceasefire, when in reality the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, and the UAE were apparently begging for bloodshed in the background in response to the attacks that had been conducted upon them. So generally, I think that's the reason why that we may be seeing a reversal, is because they're now understanding how destructive their kind of foreign policy outlook and actions are just in the short term in the Middle East, and what that might actually look like in the long term everywhere around the world, where this could end up quite similarly. So I think that's maybe the reason why. But also on top of that, there is most likely an ulterior motive, and I wouldn't expect this whole honeymoon phase to last for long, to be entirely honest with y'all. There will probably be some more, tweets that come out eventually that start talking about how bad Europe is, and Europe is the big bad guys or whatever, and then they're also really weak too. That might be coming around. So we'll have to see on that one. But it does appear that
in the meantime, though, we do have some breaking news happening right this second. We are getting word that apparently there are explosions being reported in the Iranian city of Minan. Also, can you show us where that is on a map? Because I obviously know the name of the city, but I'm not exactly sure where that location was right off the bat. So,
that's where that school.
Okay, so we're looking. Yeah, so we're looking at the coast here. So, oh yikes! So let's see. Where is that in relative location? Everything else is right here where the marker is you're putting down.
Yeah, this is it.
Okay, so it could be that they're housing some sort of mobile missile launchers. The Iranians are in that location, and the U.S. could be trying to strike it right now. That could explain it. But of course, there's a little bit of a bad cloud sort of floating over Manab right now about that previous situation of the mistake in targeting, and they accidentally hit a school or something, I believe. So that's apparently happening right now. But also, we're hearing the activation of air defenses in the Jana Abad area of the capital of Tehran. That's apparently a new area that we're hearing about right now, where they're activating air defenses inside the Iranian capital. So that appears to be a pretty big deal right there as well. So currently waiting on some more information. We are hearing of an ongoing attack on Bandar Abbas. So this is not limited, by the way. The report that came out a moment ago from U.S. sources indicating this might be limited, and they also put everything in the past tense, making it sound like it was over with. It's not over. It's still going on right now. But Enforcer, what can you tell us?
So the strikes up near Jana Abad are actually close to the Shahran oil depot in the northern part of the city, which has been hit extensively during the 12-day war of last year, and also in the last war that we just had that ended a couple of weeks ago. It does appear that this area is currently under airstrikes, and air defenses are now active within this area, which may be suggesting that whoever is attacking Tehran, which we would assume would be the United States at this point, they may be attempting to hit the Shahran oil depot or other critical military infrastructure that may exist around that area at this moment right now. It also appears that the explosions around Manab are most likely once again targeting something related to naval facilities for the Islamic Republic of Iran, because while a lot of people would know the Manab area area for the infamous Manab girls' school bombing, which wiped out about 180 children, mostly young girls, in an airstrike that was conducted by the United States. The actual target that was attempted to be hit and was failed to be hit due to faulty intelligence was the naval headquarters for the Iranian, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, that was quite literally across the street from the girls' school. So generally we understand that may be an attempt to be able to attack and destroy that headquarters and the facility again, as it may be important for coordination and operations of the IRGC's Navy and the Iranian Navy's combat capabilities in defensive force to be able to try and control the blockade over the Strait of Hormuz. Possibly. There's also some additional headquarters as well surrounding the Strait of Hormuz in Bandar Abbas, Qeshm Island, and elsewhere, which most likely are also being used as well in similar vein, in similar form. And if we start to hear that there are strikes, particularly on these headquarters, we may start getting a larger understanding that this is not a small, brief operation by the United States, but a continuation of an attempt to actually challenge and break the Iranian blockade, which hopefully would be the case. But Matthew, what do we have for breaking news coming out of this moment right now?
Okay, so the Iranians have upgraded their assessment of what they've done to the U.S. destroyers in the Strait of Hormuz. Now they're claiming that 3 American destroyers near the Strait of Hormuz were targeted by the Iranian Navy. But I will say there's already a factual problem with that claim. There were only 2 destroyers that were on the northern end of the Strait of Hormuz. So if the story is that they were trying to get back through the strait to get back down to the exit of the Persian Gulf, then this story right here doesn't make any sense because there was only 2 of them on the northern end. So how are there 3 that are getting struck? That doesn't make much sense. So at this point, it's starting to look like, once again, Iran's returning back to its propaganda roots, which is pretty much expected. So I would take this story right here and probably ball this one up and throw it in the trash bin for the most part. But that's what they're claiming right now.
I would have to say, I think by the end of the day, it'll probably be something like 90 U.S. destroyers were targeted, 4 of them destroyed, 60 of them damaged, another 100 fleeing back to America. That'll probably be the report by the end of the day, I would assume at this point, because the number is continuing to grow each time we hear it. The first time they made a report, it was just 1 U.S. destroyer. The next time it was 2, which seemed plausible, and the Israelis also stated that it was 2. Now it's been bumped up to 3. There are no 3 destroyers in the Strait of Hormuz, from what we know. There were only 2, so we're starting to believe that these reports by the Iranians are once again getting into the realm of La La Land instead of living in any form of reality. So looks like the Iranians are back on their normal trends of the propaganda initiatives. But moving us on out of that, we did also get to hear that apparently earlier on the IRGC had been placed on a war alert, which generally is quite an interesting alert status to be on a war alert, but it does appear that the IRGC has a war alert of some sort, and they issued that to their forces within the area. We also have been able to hear, by the way, right before these military actions were conducted, that Saudi Arabia and Kuwait had lifted the restrictions on the U.S. military's use of their bases and airspace after the start of the American operation to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So we do understand that last night, they actually started to deny military operations by U.S. forces on their territory because they were claiming that the U.S. wasn't taking in their strategic considerations when conducting military operations, and if they couldn't be courteous enough to do that, considering there are ones getting attacked and bombed because of the U.S.'s actions, then the U.S. wasn't going to be using their territory or airspace anymore for military operations. Apparently, the U.S. had to go and, I guess at this point, behind the scenes, grovel to them to have them reopen the airspace so that way we could continue to use it, and tell them that we weren't going to be doing that anymore, and we're truly a changed people. And so they reopened their airspace earlier this morning to us, and also their air bases as well, for us to be able to continue any sort of military operations, but with the understanding that we have to take their strategic considerations into account while we are conducting the military operations against the Iranians. So I'm assuming that if the Iranians attack any country in the Middle East again, the U.S. government would be incredibly unwise to try and make a claim that there really was no damage and the ceasefire is intact and everything's fine and nothing's wrong, because that might piss off the Middle Eastern countries enough that they completely bar us from using their airspace or air bases any further than that, no exceptions, if we continue to downplay what's going on with them. So we'll have to see if that ends up being the case, but that appears to be what we're hearing at the moment right now. We also were able to hear, by the way, just want to make this clear, Israel has stated stated that they have no connection to the sound of the explosions in Iran, which I gotta say, folks, it's always interesting how the Israelis get out that information 5 minutes before it happens. I'm just kidding, by the way. They got this out after the explosion started to happen. That's just a joke, folks. But outside of that, we also were able to hear a couple of other Iranian governmental statements that were made this morning as well. The Iranians did state that they will be having no negotiations on the nuclear issues, according to the Iranian Foreign Ministry, once again making it clear that they are not budging at all on their stance on nuclear weaponry. We have also been able to hear that additional Iranian statements were made by an affiliated Mehr news agency, citing an official statement that the possibility of reaching an agreement with the United States under current conditions is far removed from reality, meaning that they're not willing to actually make a deal with us. So any sorts of statements by the United States saying that we're very close to making a deal and it's all going to be over are most likely untrue, because the Iranians have kept on a hard line for months now that they are not making a deal with us, which basically forces us back into a military conflict with them, because negotiation will lead to nothing. And that's generally all of the news that we had heard before these attacks started here recently inside of Iran, but giving y'all a little bit of a glimpse into the foreign policy situation that was ongoing right before these strikes commenced by the United States on Iranian port facilities around the area of the Strait of Hormuz, and also possible strikes that are now ongoing within Tehran as well. We actually have more breaking news coming out at this moment. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so we do have some news here. It looks like we are getting word, and take this with a grain of salt, by the way, this is preliminary. Right now, Iranian state media and Middle Eastern telegrams are reporting explosions allegedly being heard in Abu Dhabi moments ago. But I do want to make it clear, we are not able to independently confirm that, and this is very, very shaky and early evidence that strikes might be taking place in Abu Dhabi. So we're waiting on some updates, and I'm not sure if we'll get video, because video right now is hard to come by in the Gulf states, but we're waiting on some updates from the ground about what's happening there. So we'll be watching that. It sounds like Iran could have started a retaliation already, but we can't confirm it for a fact.
And so we'll have to see if there is any reports of return fire. We also had to make it clear, folks, that unfortunately, we'll most likely have to work off of just eyewitness reports, and sadly, most likely trust me bro types of news when it comes to the UAE, because they have made it illegal within their country to film any attacks by the Iranians and any damage that occurs on the ground as a result, meaning that any sort of video or picture evidence coming out of the country would be highly unlikely, if not incredibly sparse, due to the fear of many people inside the UAE that they will be arrested and imprisoned for filming or publishing or recording any attacks that the Iranians conduct and what kind of damage is caused inside the UAE as a result. So we'll have to be largely working off of eyewitness accounts of what's going on in the UAE, because they don't want to try and disrupt their image of looking like a super safe place for ultra wealthy influencers to go. So we'll have to see what we get out of there here soon. But it does seem that the Iranians are claiming that they have conducted some sort of return fire on the UAE and may have struck some targets. But once again, that's incredibly preliminary. The Iranians are known to lie often, so we have to take that with a grain of salt and get further confirmation if we can, either inside the UAE, most likely from their Ministry of Defense, or from eyewitness reports, or incredibly seldom video and picture evidence, which may be coming out here soon. So we'll be waiting for one of those things at the moment. Matthew, do we have any other news or developments that's currently ongoing on the situation right now?
I mean, we're still hearing of ongoing explosions at Bandar Abbas at that port. That's ongoing right now, so that's the thing. We're also hearing the air defense is still ongoing in Tehran as well, and we're still getting those initial reports that maybe inside of Abu Dhabi in the UAE, maybe there's explosions taking place there, possibly, but that's not confirmed for a fact yet. In the meantime, it does appear that there's generally a information lull. The situation is clearly not over, but right now the information is sort of slowing down for the moment. So it's probably going to be a second before we get more information, and then we'll probably have a big boom of information again, would be my guess. So that is the current situation.
And really quickly, folks, I'm going to just do a little bit of a gander around. It appears that CENTCOM has not made any official statements or announcements on the situation that's happening at the moment right now. So we do not have any official statements from the United States military and its area of responsibility in the Middle East. We've also not seen any statements from, and here really quickly to check, the White House. It appears, it doesn't appear that there's been anything, at least recently. We were able to hear that small businesses are the backbone of America 44 minutes ago, which happened in the midst of this all, but we're not seeing that any statements have been made, particularly about the ongoing situation inside the Strait of Hormuz. To really quickly check the UAE Ministry of Defense, let's see, Ministry of Defense, I need to go try and pull that one here up. and it doesn't really appear that it likes that one. So, let's see. Sadly, folks, it doesn't appear that I can find the Ministry of Defense's account in the UAE to tell y'all if they've made any statements or not. I would assume that they haven't. We haven't seen them yet. And it does appear that the Iranians, however, are quite active and are making about every single claim under the sun at this point, making the situation sound like it's going somewhat well for them. So we'll have to see what's going on here in the near future, but it does appear that we are in a very light lull at the moment. And since we're in a little bit of a lull, since many people are...
Wait a second. Actually, I do have a video here. We're getting, apparently, it looks like a video alleging to show a U.S. fighter jet flying over the skies of northern Iraq. There's not much really to see here, but you can hear a fighter jet in the background. But apparently there is a fighter jet moving over Iraq from the sounds of it. So you can show people that. I'm sure everybody's heard that before about the whole fighter jet thing. But, we can at least show the people what it sounds like.
Let's listen. That is certainly a jet.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's safe to say. We can't confirm much in the fog of war, but we can confirm that is a jet of some sort. But also, by the way, apparently Iran is now reporting that the attacks are ongoing on the U.S. warships. Apparently, as they're trying to skedaddle out of the area, Iran is still trying to hit them on the way out. So that's what Iran's claiming right now. They also say that some American destroyers were damaged, but of course we've already reported on that and we can't confirm it. So they're saying they're trying to get them on the way out. So apparently it sounds like maybe these destroyers are scooting out of the area, but we really can't say that with a certainty right now, but that's what they're saying.
It does appear that, like we were assuming, the U.S. warships are most likely going to be under fire their whole way out. Because, to point this out to everybody, because some people always seem to miss this when it comes to analysis, a lot of experts out there do as well. The Strait of Hormuz is a big horseshoe-shaped area that is only about 30 miles wide at its best, and it's only about a few hundred feet deep. I think the deepest it's about 300 feet deep, so quite literally a kiddie pool in size in the world's oceans. It's incredibly small, and for that reason, and also due to the fact that the Iranians control the larger part of the outer horseshoe, if we want to call it a horseshoe bend, they are able to fire at U.S. warships the entire time that they transit. And because the United States has not conducted any significant airstrike campaigns during the armed phase of the conflict, we have not seen that any of these coastal defense forces have been greatly degraded in their combat capabilities. For that reason, these U.S. warships right now, as they're moving out, are most likely coming under fire from the Iranians at a continuous level, and not only that, are most likely having to fight for their lives to be able to make it out of the area, considering the fact that none of this has been cleared out beforehand. This is once again why preliminary operations to clear an area and to soften an enemy up before you just go waltzing right into a very dangerous area is generally considered to be the norm. You don't just send in people unsupported without conducting any form of preliminary operations. The whole reason why the United States has air superiority is so that way we can weaken up forces like these to make it far easier for our surface forces of the Navy or the Army or the Marines to be able to handle once it gets down to it. And we're seeing that right now at the moment, the U.S. sent in 2 destroyers, I would assume, without doing any preliminary clearing operations and are just expecting them to be able to survive the gauntlet. I'm hoping that they do. It would be an unfortunate tragedy to hear that one of these ships really was damaged. But this is why, once again, to reiterate it over and over, that's why you conduct clearing operations, so this doesn't end up becoming a gauntlet and a fight to the death as they're trying to get out. But we actually have breaking news coming out at this moment. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so we are getting some more information here and also some new threats from Iran. So we are hearing that apparently, like we just heard in that video a minute ago, there's currently intense jet activity over Baghdad right now. That could indicate that maybe U.S. fighter jets that are based inside of Israel are currently making their way over to maybe Tehran, perhaps. That could indicate that. So we could be seeing imminent attacks on maybe some cities inside of Iran. That could be some U.S. fighter jets heading out. So we are hearing that. Also, Iran's military command has now issued a strong threat. They say that Tehran will respond decisively and immediately to any assault. And as you know, an assault has just taken place on Iran's coast and at their islands at Qeshm and Iraq. So we're expecting an imminent Iranian retaliation. It appears to be that is going to be the case. So it's heating up. It looks like it's about to get a lot heated up, a lot more here in the next hour or so. So it looks like we're in for it at this point. For the war not to be restarting, it sure does look like a war.
It sure does look like a war. That's for sure. I mean, everybody's shooting at everybody at this point. Seems to me like a war. Now, just to remind you all, Hezbollah fired a couple of bottle rockets at the Israelis about a week ago, and the Israelis claimed that that was a complete violation of the ceasefire, and they're back in a full-blown war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, completely ripping apart the 3-week ceasefire that they agreed to. So, if the Israelis have such a low threshold for the resumption of military hostilities and the breaking of a ceasefire, then what the Iranians have done so far over the past few days certainly is a violation of the ceasefire, and the war is back on. But a lot of people currently right now are talking about what the Iranian response to these heavy U.S. attacks along the coastline may be. And Matthew, what are people thinking about it? And what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so do you think Iran's going to retaliate heavily after these U.S. attacks on Bandar Abbas and the HORMUZ coastline? It looks like 58% said yes, Iran will 100% restart the war, while 29% said Iran will probably launch a small attack in retaliation, and 7% said no, Iran will let this one slide. And I think this one here is going to restart the war. I think this is going to be the restarting of it right here. I'd be surprised if it wasn't, because this was also something Iran was warning about. And also, the U.S. had suggested that maybe they're going to let the whole thing slide and they were going to start talking it out. But it sounds like that time is now passing for the most part, which it's about time, because every single day that we were waiting, we were letting the Iranians get more control of the Strait of Hormuz. So it appears to be the U.S. has finally decided to put its foot down, and the Iranians are probably going to retaliate on probably everybody in the region. I'd imagine Israel, the Gulf states, the United States forces. They're probably going to go for everybody. So I'm with it 57%. I think that the war is about to restart, and it could restart very heavily in just the next hour. That could be as fast as it happens. But Enforcer, what say you?
I wanted to say that I would be with 58%. I would believe that the Iranians are most likely going to be restarting the war and restarting strikes against most of the Gulf states and most likely U.S. forces as well, as this will be viewed most likely by the Iranians as a complete violation of the ceasefire. We have never seen yet, to get an example of how the Iranians would respond to this, a direct attack by the U.S. on Iranian soil after the supposed ceasefire went into effect a while ago. And so for that reason, we don't know how they would respond, but I would assume that by default, they're going to respond heavily, considering that any time that the U.S. has attacked them in the past, they always conduct some form of a missile and drone attack against us as a response. So I would highly likely believe that a response is going to be coming almost as a guarantee at this point. I would say most likely within the next hour, maybe even within the next 2 to 3 hours, we're going to start seeing significant firefights going on in the skies over the Middle East between us, the Gulf states, and Iran, as the two opposite sides, once again, as it was before. So I think that the armed conflict is going to be coming back around, no matter how much the U.S. government continues to claim that the ceasefire is still in effect, although we're in a war. I gotta say, folks, these ceasefires these days are something of magic. We can somehow be in a war, and yet the ceasefire would still be in full effect. It's truly mysterious to me. But we actually have more breaking news coming out at this moment right now. So, Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so right now we are seeing that apparently the Iranians are saying that the U.S. did strike a naval base in southern Iran's Manab County, according to the local governor. There's no casualties caused there, but it looks like a naval base has been struck as well. So that's apparently confirmed by the Iranians. They're confirming their own damage inside of that area. So it looks like they have been hit pretty strongly there. We have not gotten confirmation though of any other major damage on the Iraq or Qeshm Islands. We haven't heard that yet. But we are seeing that apparently strikes are taking place in Manab, and that is confirmed.
And here, really quickly, let me see if I can find these naval facilities that might exist somewhere around here. Let's see, any IRGC fast attack boats amidst this pile of junk? Not really. Maybe they're elsewhere in this area, because they said Manab County, which would be kind of close to this area, because there's the town of Manab. But we're trying to see if we can find out exactly where this is. The Manab River appears to be a seasonal dry river. It also appears that there was some sort of a fire that had broken out here at some point when the satellite picture was taken. I'm not really seeing any naval facilities off of the bat. Maybe in here. Oh, there's a lot of boats. Not really any fast attack boats, unfortunately, so we're still trying to find those right now, but they did state that some sort of a naval facility had been hit in Manab County. Let me go and pull
Well,
this.
Well, while you're still looking for that right there, you can keep looking for it here. We do have some more news that Iran's top joint military command has just stated that the U.S. has officially violated the ceasefire by targeting the Iranian oil tanker near the Strait of Hormuz and also another ship entering the Hormuz Strait. So now the Iranians are saying that the ceasefire is over. Despite the U.S. saying that the ceasefire is not over yet, the Iranians are saying it is officially over. That's what they're saying right now. So that would indicate imminent retaliation by the Iranians, which seems to be a pretty obvious response. I think at this point it's pretty obvious they'll probably end up responding. We just don't know how long it's going to take for them to respond. It could be within the hour, or it could be possibly maybe tomorrow, perhaps. We're just not totally sure yet. But the Iranians are ready to go. They look like they're ready to start launching missiles at everybody for the most part. So it looks like our prediction will be pretty spot on. The war is pretty much restarted at this point, and it looks like on May the 7th, the hostilities will resume in full. It looks like that'll be the case.
And really quickly, it looks like I might have gotten a little bit of a lead on where this may be. Apparently, there is some facility that may be called the Saeed al-Shahada compound that may be some form of an Iranian port. This is within Saudi Arabia, so that is not it. But there is some sort of a port along the coastline here that is operated by the IRGC as a small naval facility. But I'm not able to find it at the moment, and it also appears that any attempt to put that name in on Google gives us a location inside of Saudi Arabia. So I'm trying to see if...
Well, I can tell you in the meantime, while you're still looking for it, that apparently we're hearing air defense is active again in western Tehran, and it looks like it's once again active, and the Iranians are claiming they're intercepting more hostile aircraft. This time they're saying hostile aircraft. So we just saw that there's heavy fighter jet activity over Iraq, which could indicate imminent strikes on Tehran, perhaps, by fighter jets. Maybe they're engaging fighter jets this time. It's hard to tell. We are also hearing of a brand new area of a possible attack. There is aerial activity and AA fire being reported in Shiraz. That's a new one. We haven't heard that one yet. Apparently, Shiraz, being in the Fars province of Iran, it looks like they are currently maybe experiencing some sort of attack or some sort of engagement right this minute. So I'm seeing some U.S. sources claim that this is limited to Qeshm Island and Larak Island in the Strait of Hormuz. That does not appear to be the case. That appears to be misinformation. This is not limited to that. It appears to be across Iran. It appears to be they're currently engaging with. So that appears to be what we're hearing.
And that does appear to be what we're hearing at the time. Do you have any other further developments in news at the moment?
Right now, that is it.
All right, and so we'll hopefully be hearing something else in the moment. In the meantime, we're going to try and continue the hunt for this naval facility somewhere within the area, so that way we can at least get some geolocation of where it may be. It's very hard to find. Well, wait a minute, this might actually be it. Maybe? I'm doubting that. It looks like some sort of a fishing sort of a facility. Doesn't really look like one that seems to be an IRGC facility, although they're very poorly maintained and funded. They do hold a decent amount of fast attack boats, so we're still trying to find out exactly where these are. Just sadly, it doesn't really appear that we're able to find it easily somewhere within the Manab coastline, which isn't that large. Manab County isn't huge, but for some reason we're just not able to find this. Now, we do know of a larger IRGC naval headquarters within the town of Manab. That's near to the girls' school that was hit and destroyed a little while ago. And unfortunately, that is not the facility. The IRGC is claiming that a port facility was hit, which is not a naval headquarters. So we're trying to look around the coastline for that, but I think we're most likely going to have to give up on that search, unfortunately, folks, because no matter how hard I'm looking along their coastline, I just can't find anything that would meet the description of some form of an IRGC naval facility. So moving us on out of that, it does appear that we have a little bit of a lull in the news at the moment. We're still trying to find out a little bit more of what's going on in real time right now, but to give you all a short recap of what we've had recently to make sure that everybody's up to speed with what we've had going on right now, we have been able to hear of some specific developments within the area that does show that the U.S. Air Force is currently conducting bombardments of the area around the Strait of Hormuz at this moment, and we've also heard that apparently the United States Navy is conducting some sort of action within the Strait of Hormuz. So that's what we're hearing right now. But Matthew, do you have anything to add to that?
So we are hearing as well that now Iran is also expanding their narrative yet again. They're saying that originally, by the way, let me go back to this to give some context here. The Iranians were claiming that the UAE had attacked their country. That's what they were claiming originally. Now they're saying this. This is coming from the Iranian army right now. They're saying that in cooperation with some regional countries. So now they're saying and alleging that multiple Gulf states were involved with this attack. So not clear what they mean. Of course, we did hear that Kuwait and Saudi Arabia have once allowed a permission for the U.S. to launch their aircraft from their territory. So maybe they're referring to that possibly. But they're once again expanding the narrative because, of course, they're probably about to attack everybody once again. So they're trying to come up with a narrative here. So that seems to be what they're saying.
And so we'll be waiting to see if we can get any further developments out of the area at the moment. But in the meantime, we're going to be hopefully hearing something else here soon. But we're going to be trying to get some questions while we wait. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right. So we are also hearing. Wait a minute. Hold on. Do I have a new video? Hold on a second. Oh, okay. So we have our first video here. I've been waiting for this. So Bandar Abbas, we apparently have our first video of what we can hear explosions in the background at Bandar Abbas from what we're getting right now. Also, by the way, we are hearing more air defense activity in Shiraz, Iran. Shiraz is apparently under attack right now, and that's a new one. But let's take a look at the video. This is the first one we've got so far from Bandar Abbas.
Certainly sounds like a lot of air defense fire. But that's the end of that clip, giving us the sound of what appeared to be mostly air defense fire. I don't believe we heard the sound of any direct explosions in Bandar Abbas on that clip, but the Iranians did state themselves that Bandar Abbas had been hit by a couple of airstrikes, which gives us an idea that while we didn't hear him in that clip, there was significant air defense fire in the midst of the airstrikes, which we certainly did get to hear in the audio clip. So we'll be making sure to put this down as confirmed air defense fire in Bandar Abbas. And that appears to be a final confirmation, video evidence of at least some of the air defenses that are currently going off within Bandar Abbas at the moment. So with that in mind, hopefully we'll be able to get some more video and picture evidence to be able to confirm the stories that we've already covered at this moment and give you all a little bit of a better idea of what they sounded like or what they looked like in the midst of them happening in real time. So with that, we are going to be taking a brief moment here to get on into a few questions before we get our next bit of breaking news. So Matthew, what do we got?
And we will almost certainly be getting breaking news over the next probably hour or so. So we'll probably be breaking from the questions here quite often. So just to let y'all know that up front. But our first super chat here goes to Tom S. And thank you very much, Tom, for that $75 super chat and supporting the channel with that super chat. We do appreciate that. Tom said, "Thank you for barely ever sleeping, LOL. And here's to the pizza and coffee fund. Long live the LSA, and please take a question."
Hey, thank you so much for the incredible support, Tom S. And I gotta say, thank you so much for really appreciating our dedication to news coverage. I was actually just getting up a little while ago, and then this whole thing started to go on, and then we had to start working on getting live. So it's certainly one hell of a occurrence. We're basically working nonstop 24/7 these days, but we're absolutely honored to be able to know that so many people continue to enjoy our coverage and also rely on us as a real-time breaking news source. We try our best to make sure that the news is as up to date, as accurate as it can be, and as analyzed as it can be. And hopefully we've been able to meet that criteria once again on this stream. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. Long live the Lee Spring Army. And we will make sure to take a question from the chat. So Matthew, what do we got?
And this one goes to Mad Max. He said, "Could the U.S. be doing preemptive strikes for this Strait of Hormuz by any chance?"
It's possible that these could be preemptive strikes, but right now, from the only indication that we've had from a report from a U.S. official, apparently these strikes aren't restarting the war, which I think is a completely ridiculous notion that bombing another country is going to restart an armed conflict with them. That seems to me to just be completely asinine, but what do I know? I'm only a common citizen. I'm not one of the great and mighty people who make these kinds of goofy statements, but outside of that, I would have to say that generally this is going to be restarting the war without a doubt, and so we might as well look at these as preemptive strikes, because before long, we're going to have to forcibly land and take over the islands inside the Strait of Hormuz to be able to try and see that ships can pass through. So generally this may be considered preliminary actions, but according to U.S. officials, it isn't. But in the meantime, we actually actually have major breaking news going on at this moment right now. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so we are hearing that apparently there is confirmed fighter jet activity in Shiraz, Iran right now. That's in the Fars province of Iran. Apparently there is confirmed fighter jet activity there. We don't know whose fighter jets it is, but Iran's fighter jet inventory is running a little bit low these days. So if it's one of theirs, it could be a rare sighting of a rare endangered species, possibly. So it could be maybe U.S. fighter jets, maybe. We just can't say for certain right now because we don't have any picture evidence of it. But Shiraz is currently dealing with an attack. That we do know right now, and that's not on the coast. That's deeper into Iran, so that's a pretty big sign there. We are hearing as well. We had just gotten some preliminary reports earlier that there were some sort of activity or explosions in Abu Dhabi. We are getting more information that allegedly sirens are being heard in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and this is while, of course, Tehran is under attack as well. So it appears to be we could be seeing the first stage of the retaliation by Iran on maybe the Gulf states. That could be what we're looking at right here. But once again, I hate to keep saying it like a broken record, but we need confirmation. We need confirmation. But Enforcer, what say you?
And it does appear that at the moment we are seeing that the Iranians may be returning fire, as there is a supposed report that there is an air defense scenario ongoing over Dubai and the United Arab Emirates. And we've also been able to hear that apparently whoever the U.S. official is talking to Fox News just stated that there are now strikes happening around Bandar Abbas, which I believe would be this town right here that I'm putting the marker on, as we already looked at it earlier, but it didn't really appear to have any sort of IRGC naval facilities that were well built up inside of it. Possibly they may just look like normal civilian facilities, which wouldn't be out of the question, but it's also giving us the idea, at least at the moment right now, that the U.S. is trying to strike fast attack boat basings within the area. It also does appear that the jet activity over Shiraz may be the incredibly rare and exceptional MiG-29 of the Islamic Republic of Iran's Air Force, as the MiG-29, surprisingly enough, and the F-4 Phantoms have largely been able to avoid destruction throughout most airstrikes and air campaigns in Iran over the past year, due to a significant amount of the F-4 Phantoms being enclosed within an underground bunker facility and a mountain air base. And we've also seen that the MiG-29s have, oddly enough, just been elusive enough to be able to avoid being destroyed on the ground. Most other aircraft did not have a similar fate. Most of them were destroyed on the ground in places like Isfahan and elsewhere throughout the country. Also, the additional fact that we're hearing of the air raids inside of Abu Dhabi and Dubai is most likely expected at this point. The Iranians seem to be choosing the UAE as their primary target to try and hit and cause damage to over the entirety of the conflict, because what's crazy, folks, is that during the armed portion of the war that started on the 28th of February and ended about a month and a half, about a month and a half in or so, the United Arab Emirates was actually the country that was attacked the most out of everybody, even more than Israel, in terms of the drones and missiles that were fired at them. So that would be giving us an idea that it is highly likely that they're most likely under attack at the moment right now. But sadly, folks, we'll probably not be getting any good confirmation of that in video and picture evidence, because once again, the UAE has made it illegal to film or photograph any of these incidents or attacks that are happening on the UAE, and for that reason, most people are going to be discouraged from making any sort of video or pictures of the incidents, because they're going to be tracked down by the UAE's government, arrested and imprisoned as a result of breaking the law. So we'll have to see what comes out of that one. But that appears to be all the breaking news.
Also, by the way, here's y'all. I'm not doing this as satire, by the way, but I just got word that the U.S. is currently awaiting Iran's response to the latest peace talks proposal. So I think that might be a futile effort to wait on that response right there. I think that might be futile. But what can we say? What can we say? Maybe they're trying to be funny. Maybe they're trying to stick it to Iran. Possibly. I don't know what they're up to. Maybe they're trying to be sarcastic with that. There's a little bit of a sarcastic edge to it. It seems like. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, I have a feeling that the answer is most likely going to be yes. I have a feeling they're finally going to accept our peace offer, because they've only been stating, folks, for months now that they're not going to accept any of our peace offers, and they're not going to compromise on their nuclear weaponry or their ICBMs or their funding of terrorist forces or their control of the Strait of Hormuz. And so I have a feeling, folks, that finally, on this day, as we're bombing them again and as they're pledging a response, they're finally going to say yes to our demands, because clearly the time is perfect right now for the United States to get a deal. I'm just kidding, by the way. They're going to absolutely say no. They might not even respond to it at all, and they might just resume military operations against everybody in the region. But in the meantime, we have more breaking news coming out at this moment right now. So what do we got?
Okay, so thanks to some observant viewers in the chat, because unfortunately I'm watching like all my different like Telegram and Twitter sources right now, so I haven't had a chance to look at Flight Radar. Go take a look at Flight Radar 24 and specifically look at the airspace over Jordan and Iraq. And I want to bring something up here. We have heard fighter jet activity over Iraq, and we confirmed that in video that apparently there are fighter jets currently en route and transiting over Iraqi airspace, and we believe they might be heading out to go strike Iran, maybe possibly even Tehran. We have seen a large amount of tankers take off. It appears to be from Israel, and there's also a tanker currently lurking over Iraq as well. It appears to be a Pegasus tanker aircraft lurking over Iraq. So we're expecting something to happen here. It could be an expansion of U.S. airstrikes on Iran, and that's apparently what we're seeing tankers take off for right here. So we're just starting. I think that's the key. Also, by the way, the tankers just turned off their transponders over Iraq. Look, it just disappeared on your screen right there. They just turned them off. That suggests that there's a lot more tankers over Iraq that are currently there that we can't see on transponder data. That one literally just turned it off. We saw that here live on the air.
Yeah, I was actually about to say that. We've already seen earlier on in the air that 2 of the tankers that were over Jordan had turned off their transponders. And so there was a lot, and actually we just saw that 2 of them over the UAE just turned off their transponders as well right now. So there are a far larger number of tankers that are up in the air right now than what we could even see on ADS-B transponder data here on Flight Radar 24. But even with the ones that we can see at the moment that haven't turned their transponders off, there's 4 of them over Jordan, 2 of them over Saudi Arabia, and another 4 of them over the UAE that still have their transponders on. So right now, there are 10 tankers with their transponders on, and most likely an equal number, if not more, with their transponders off right now that are operating over the Gulf of Oman in Iraq.
What if they're all like, I'm not trying to sound like a narcissist here, folks. I know some people are like, these guys' egos really full of themselves, but like just being funny, like what if they're in their like tanker aircraft right now with their phone on, like watching the stream, they're like, shit, they're seeing us on transponder, turn it off, and then like they all like simultaneously are like flipping off their transponders. I mean, I don't know, like that's weird. We just literally hopped on here right now, all of a sudden it's all going dark, like across Iraq, like all the ones I was just watching over Iraq, they were all gone dark and we can't see them anymore. But I did catch them before they went dark though. They're definitely over Iraqi airspace right now. They're just a little bit shy. They just flipped off their little notice button there real quick.
Oh, look, here's another one that just popped up over Iraq, a Pegasus. We didn't even ever know of that one until right now. And also the one down near the UAE has also turned its transponder in again, well, turned it on again as well. So it does appear that it may just be splotchiness of the areas that the ADS-B transponder data is being collected, or they're turning it on and they're turning it off. But it does appear large amount of tankers for sure. I would say, folks, that it would be a decent estimate to say there's at least 20 of them up right now. We can't see all of them, but definitely somewhere around 20, maybe even higher than that at the moment in the area. So
yeah,
with each tanker supporting...
Also, I don't mean to interrupt you real quick, but real quick, though, we need to jump to something real quick that's happening. CENTCOM just released a statement right now. If you want to go read that, go to the Twitter page. I just reposted that at the very top. It should be popping up right now. And it's an official statement from CENTCOM. We just got it.
Ah, and here we are. So, CENTCOM protects U.S. warships transiting Strait of Hormuz. Note warships in plural suggests that it was the 2 Arleigh Burkes heading back out. So, U.S. forces intercepted unprovoked Iranian attacks and responded with self-defense strikes as U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyers transited the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Oman the 7th of May. Iranian forces launched multiple missiles, drones, and small boats as the USS Truxtun, the USS Rafael Peralta, and the USS Mason transited the International Sea Passage. So actually there were 3 Arleigh Burkes. We only saw 2 on satellite.
So that means Iran was actually telling the truth, believe it or not. Like, we were writing that off as propaganda that the Iranians were putting out, but it was a trio of destroyers, and also all 3 of them were attacked. So actually, for once, the Iranians were telling the truth.
And also another thing is that the Frank E. Peterson is not one of these destroyers, so we'll have to retract that news from earlier, because the Iranians had claimed that one of these destroyers was the Frank E. Peterson. Does not appear that the Frank E. Peterson was involved in these operations around the Strait of Hormuz and in the Persian Gulf. But they were able to transit the International Sea Passage. No U.S. assets were struck. U.S. Central Command eliminated inbound threats and targeted Iranian military facilities responsible for attacking U.S. forces, including missile and drone launch sites, command and control locations, and intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance nodes. CENTCOM does not seek escalation, but remains positioned and ready to protect American forces. So this largely appears to be corroborating what I was saying earlier, Matthew, in that I was like, oh, this must be the story that's happening. The Iranians fired at our U.S. ships, they defended themselves, and then the U.S. aircraft that were screening them as they were going through began striking everyone that was firing at them and knocking out their support and headquarters to make sure that their response times and coordination was thrown off. So that actually appears to be the very scenario, and we explained that on air about 30 minutes before CENTCOM's publication came out, clarifying that literally T for T, word for word, the exact playthrough that happened in the area, at least according to their claims.
Yeah, it looks like that was the case actually. So that was a good catch originally there. But this is a pretty big deal, and they're confirming that all three of these ships were attacked in the Strait. They're denying any damage. It looks like they're saying that the U.S. CENTCOM eliminated the inbound threats from the Iranian military. But here's the catch, folks. The U.S. Navy is very potent. Like, I'm not trying to diminish their potency whatsoever. They're very competent and potent, and the U.S. Navy and pretty much all of our armed forces are very competent and potent. But at the same time, though, there is a gap with drone defense, and the Iranians and even CENTCOM's admitting that Iran fired drones at these vessels. So that can easily overwhelm a ship's air defenses, easily. So the Iranians are claiming they've damaged and also forced these ships to scurry out of the Strait. But, you know, at this point, I'm a little bit doubtful that there was no damage. That seems to be a miracle, to say the least, that there was no damage. I think there might be some damage, and CENTCOM's not owning up to it right this second because, I mean, they've attacked three vessels with a whole bunch of munitions. I mean, to come out unscathed, that seems a little bit unlikely.
I would say that it most likely is unlikely. But there's also a chance that they were able to make it through somehow successfully, because the fact that there are three Arleybergs here does increase their chances of survival without taking damage, because they're able to see that a far larger amount of firepower is available for defensive measures. About another, what would it be, something like 70 VLS cells with SM3s or SM2s inside of them. Also a decent amount of medium range air defenses as well, and then also the Sea Whiz, in a whole other ship carrying that same armament as the rest, probably would hedge their chances more towards the side of surviving without being hit, most likely. But we'll have to see. I also have to point out, folks, that the reason why we're kind of waffling around on whether or not there was damage to these vessels is because CENTCOM has misreported a lot of lacks of damage before, and as more and more proof has become available to the public, we've seen that they've largely been misrepresenting the amount of damage that has been taken in prior scenarios and engagements with the Iranians. But we actually have more breaking news coming out at this moment. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so they're overwhelming us with news right now. We're getting some more footage out of Iran, but also before we get to that, though, Moscow is under attack right now. So that's a big deal. Putin's ceasefire was just supposed to begin today, and the first thing Ukraine did was they launched an attack, and they're attacking Moscow. So that's going on apparently right now. Not to pull everybody every which direction, but right now we're tracking news from every corner of the world pretty much. And right now, Moscow is a hotbed right now for drone activity. So we'll be watching that in the background, though. But right now, our Iran coverage will take priority because we're obviously seeing the U.S., our home country, getting involved in a new conflict here, restarting at least. But let's take a look at that air defense activity in Western Tehran in this video.
And we see the proximity fuse shells going off again. Look at all that water.
It's very green.
I don't think that's safe for consumption.
Still not hearing fighter jet activity here yet, so fighter jets are on the way. They haven't reached here yet.
Yeah, that does appear to be the case. Also, Western Tehran, here's the lake they were filming at right here. So we're guessing that they were over here near the Fatima Mosque or the Chitgar boat pier. And they were looking across this lake into this area of Western Tehran near to the Azadi Stadium. And that's generally where the air defense fire was proximity fusing over the city. So that seems to be our best indication at the moment right now as to where this was filmed, where it was looking, and what kind of air defenses we were seeing at the moment. So it is certainly showing that Western Tehran over here is under fire at this moment, or they are currently conducting air defense fire within that area. That was pretty easy geolocation because there's literally no water around Tehran except for this one lake.
Also, by the way, we've just gotten word that there's now jet activity over Kuwait. So whatever aircraft are currently transiting near Iraq, they've made their way to Kuwait now. So they're getting closer. So I'm expecting to hear something in a minute of some type of fighter jet activity on Iran, but we're waiting on that right now. Also, Israel is currently calling an emergency meeting right now. They've just apparently called a snap meeting with their war cabinet apparently right now. So they must be expecting something to happen on them, which is a sensible precaution because I'd imagine they're probably a target at this point. So that's what we're hearing. That is the breaking news.
And that's very interesting to hear. In the meantime, we can see that there is about 5 aerial tankers that have their transponders on over Jordan and Israel, 2 that are currently flying over the area of Saudi Arabia and also Iraq, and we also can count another 5 of them that have their transponders on within the UAE. So right now, quite a large number of tankers. Right now, the number is about 12, and we already know of about another 3 to 4 tankers that we have seen prior that have their transponders still off at the moment, which would bump that number well on up towards 16 or 20 at the moment. Aerial tankers that are airborne and operational right now within the Middle East. This kind of a response suggests a couple of things. We're not really sure which yet, but I'll go through them to make sure to give you all an idea of what we're looking at right now and what possible avenues are being perceived by the U.S. military. Either they're expecting a major Iranian attack to attempt targeting U.S. bases throughout the region, and so these tankers went up, and also all of the fighters in the area have gone up, so that way none of them are on the ground to be able to be hit and destroyed by an incoming Iranian attack. That is a likely reason why we've seen all of these tankers go up in the air in such large numbers. There is also a possibility that the U.S. is preparing for larger airstrikes against Iran immediately right now, and these tankers are up in the air preparing to support combat air-to-ground operations against the Iranians here in the near future. Or we may be seeing that the United States is trying to support the continued air operations around the Strait of Hormuz to help those destroyers get out. And so all of these tankers have gone airborne with a load of fighters to be able to try and conduct air defense and air interdiction over those destroyers as they continue to try and make their way out. It could be one of those 3 options, but I tell y'all that the third option is the least likely, because this is spanning the entire region currently. This is most likely one of the first 2 options, and highly likely the first option, that they're getting everybody up in the air so that way they're not sitting ducks on the ground waiting to get blown up when the Iranian attack that's inevitably going to happen now starts over the whole of the region. That is very likely what we're going to be watching unfold here very soon. And that would be a wise and prudent option to make sure that everybody's up in the air so that way they can't get blown up on the ground. So with that, we'll be waiting to see what else we get coming out of the area. And before we move on, Matthew, do we have anything else coming out of the area as far as what's happening in the area and what will be occurring within the area here soon?
Okay, so we don't really have anything super new right this second. Right now, we're still looking at a CENTCOM response that came in for the most part. So that's what we're watching right now. We're trying to get some more updates out of the Gulf states. Of course, the UAE is being very secretive about the damage that they're taking right now, but we believe to be that there's some sort of Iranian retaliation taking place on the UAE, but we can't confirm it. But in the meantime, though, that's all we're getting. We're expecting some imminent escalations in the next 30 minutes or so by the U.S. forces on Iran, though. That's what we're expecting in the next 30 minutes. So we'll be keeping an eye out for that.
And so we will be waiting to see what further unfolds within the region. But in the meantime, we will be getting to a couple of more questions. So Matthew, what do we got?
And our next super chat here in the meantime goes to NYERC75, who put in a very generous $100 support. And thank you very much, good sir, for the largest support of the night and supporting our work, because we are crowdfunded by the viewers. And without that viewer support, it would be hard to run the channel. So we do appreciate that very much. He said, real-time news.
And it is real time. It's about as real time as it can get. And I got to say that we're incredibly appreciative of so many people having been here to watch this breaking news so far. Over the course of an hour and 45 minutes, 122,000 people have watched the news here on this channel. And we've also had a peak viewership so far of 20,500 people. It's a huge honor to know that so many people consider this channel to be their primary source of news. And we are incredibly proud to be the primary source of news for so many people each and every single day. I hope that we've been able to do y'all a good justice so far with what we've been covering, making sure that it's accurate, up to date, and also trying to analyze the situation to get as clear a story out even before CENTCOM gets to putting it out. I gotta say, folks, not to toot our whistle, but the analysis that we do on this channel is pretty solid, because we got the story correct on the channel of the scenario that had just happened 30 minutes before CENTCOM even put out their publication of what actually happened that led to everything going down inside the Strait of Hormuz. We got that down to a T. And so if y'all like that kind of analysis, because that is once again probably one of the most direct and quickest examples that we have of our analysis being almost dead on the nail, if you would like to hear that stuff before it is basically announced or happens, make sure to subscribe. We do that all the time. Our analysis is usually pretty spot on and pretty on point on what's going to be happening here in the near future, either in the immediate future or even within the near future, within the next several days or at least the next week or so of what's going to be happening. And so I got to say, a huge thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be on air reporting the news, trying to keep it as up to date and as accurate and factual as it can. And not only that, trying to get out accurate analysis that is so accurate, it says the story before CENTCOM even published their side of the story of what actually happened. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a super chat here from Jenna, last name Tolls. And thank you very much for the support, by the way. They put in the 21. They said, here's some more. I couldn't super chat because the VPN was on.
Oh, and I thank you so much for the support. And that is something that happens a lot to folks. If you have a VPN on, folks, it does generally stop you sometimes from having to watch ads on YouTube, but it also stops your ability to super chat. So if you ever try and super chat the channel and you can't, highly likely it may just be that your VPN's on and you would have to turn it off to be able to support the channel with the super chat. But I do thank you massively for the support. Yenya Tolls, and help with this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you crowdfunding this channel and helping us to keep this news running, we wouldn't be the source of news for thousands, hundreds of thousands of people every single day. So humongous thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Yenya Tolls once again, who puts an $100 support. Hey! Thank you very much for that massive support yet again, by the way, the second one. They said that this is going to be known as World War Cluster F.
Well, I mean, it definitely is probably going to be, because at the moment right now, it's the situation is largely unfixable in how it is appearing. If we even start taking the right actions today, which is militarily clearing out the Strait of Hormuz, which I would wish that we would do, instead of, just going, oh, we're responding to us, firing at us, let's bomb them a little. I would like to see that was just done all day, every day on the Strait of Hormuz. If you do it enough, you'll be able to clear out most of the threats that they pose and make it safe enough for a warship to go in there, and then eventually an LCS to go in there to start demining, and slowly yet surely we could turn the situation around in our favor and reopen the strait and see that the war is now well within our hands instead of Iran's at this point. I wish that we would see that, but still, it looks like they're very reserved in how they're responding and reacting to anything, and that's going to tie our hands in a very negative way, and is going to produce negative outcomes for the United States if they keep sitting here and doing nothing in terms of actually pushing forward and achieving the objectives we need for the United States militarily and strategically in the war. But a huge thanks to you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that incredibly well, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. In the meantime, we actually have more breaking news coming out. So Matthew, what do we got?
So right now we're getting word that apparently, here's some more details about the 3 U.S. Navy destroyers that were attacked while they were trying to make their way through the Strait of Hormuz tonight. They were not only attacked by drones, possibly Iranian missiles as well, they were also attacked by large hordes of Iranian fast attack boats. And it sounds like the destroyers opened fire with the main guns, also the CIWS, which is the ship-based version of the CRAM, and also a small caliber fire from the deck. So apparently they had sailors out there with machine guns just letting loose on the boats that were coming up. So at this point, folks, it's kind of hard to argue that the ships maintained no damage whatsoever, because apparently the fast attack boats were in firing range, and there was a lot of them. So I would imagine that the Iranians were at least able to get off some small arms fire at the boats, at least the destroyers. There's probably a lot more to this story than we're being told. We didn't hear about this in the CENTCOM statement. They didn't mention this part. This is coming from U.S. officials speaking to CBS News right here.
I'm not gonna lie. I mean, that's kind of a crazy idea right there. That all of the guns, there's not a lot of additional guns, by the way, on an early Burke, but all of the guns on the ship were opening fire. The 50 cals, the 25 millimeters, the main gun, the deck gun, the Sea Whizzes. I mean, that sounds, to be entirely honest with y'all folks, like it was a fight for
it was at max.
Huh?
It was at maximum capacity at that point, it sounds like.
Well, it sounds like a fight for their life, honestly, because if they're getting that overwhelmed, the fast attack boats were getting that close. That doesn't sound like a good situation, to be entirely honest with you all. That is one of the worst case situations to where every single gun is having to fire on the ship, because that means that the situation is getting close to being well out of control and overwhelming the ship, which isn't really a situation that you want to find 3 Arleigh-Burkes to be in, much less a single one. So sounds like one hell of a fight has happened, apparently, according to U.S. officials who spoke to CBS. And to show y'all a little bit of these secondary positions on ship, let me see if I can get y'all some pictures here of what this would look like, at least for those secondary firing positions that we were hearing about. Let me pull up the 25 millimeters to show these to y'all. So the 25 millimeter deck guns are here. You can actually see these. Basically what they are they're, I believe, the very same Bushmaster guns that are on a Bradley, but they've been slightly converted for naval use in an automated turret with a belt-fed ammunition system just like the Bradley. And these are able to be used against any sort of surface threats and also air threats as well, as they can be guided with a guidance computer to be able to shoot down incoming drones and whatnot. Then we also know, right here, you can actually see this, that they can be fired directly by a sailor on the deck. This is also doable as well, but it can switch between being a manned position and an automated position controlled by the fire control room inside of the ship. Also, there are the 50 cals as well, and let me go pull those up here, because most Arleigh-Burkes have about 4 of these. You can actually see them using one right here in target drills that were being conducted on one of the Arleigh-Burkes, the John S. McCain, actually, the DDG-56, which were also apparently being used against service vessels. I believe the effective range of a 50 cal is around 1,400 meters, or 1.4 kilometers. That'd be roughly about 1.2 miles to 1.1 miles against a vessel or any sort of a vehicle generally. So that means that these fast attack boats had come within about a mile of the Arleigh-Burke for a Browning M2 to be fired at them, and for the crew on board to think that it would have any success of hitting the boats and causing them damage. So this was one hell of a fight, to say the least.
Yeah, from the sounds of it, it sounds like the entire deck of the destroyers were pretty much just unleashing hell. Like, apparently every square inch of the deck was full of sailors firing small arms. They were firing machine guns. They were firing the Sea-Whiz, firing the main 5-inch gun. I mean, this thing was like an old-time, like, World War II battle from the sounds of it.
Honestly.
They were letting loose. I mean, this was like out of a cartoon, apparently. All 3 of these destroyers were doing this simultaneously. So that explains a lot of the, like, massive, the situation in the strait. That was what people were apparently hearing when it started, was all this huge commotion going on out here.
Man, imagine the sound of all that. A 127 millimeter gun firing, a 25 millimeter guns firing, and 50 cals firing all simultaneously at these boats. Like that, the sound of that had to have been insane. It was basically like being back in World War II on a battleship that was under a kamikaze attack by the Japanese with all of the air defense guns firing. That has to be something else.
Yeah, it's not good either, because I mean, if a ship has to, bring out hands on deck like that to get machine gun to start firing at, incoming targets like that, I mean, it's true, they're fighting for their life at that point. So, I mean, I don't know. To me, it sounds like, well, what we were saying before, we should be very careful about just sending our ships through the strait like this, because it could end up ugly. It sounds like it did, and hopefully the damage wasn't too severe, but I would imagine there probably was some damage. Hopefully there was no casualties, I hope.
I would hope that there is no casualties, and if there were, it'll be okay as long as they're not dead. If they're wounded, they'll live, because they'll be able to medically evacuate them out of the area pretty quickly due to the helipads and whatnot once they get out of the fight. Until then, they'll be brought down to sick bay, and they'll just be kept in a stable condition there until they can be loaded up on a helicopter, a medical evac, and then sent out to some larger ship for actual medical care, probably a carrier, or they might, if they're in bad enough condition, be sent to a carrier and then put on a Greyhound and then sent all the way out, possibly back to Germany to go get actual legitimate medical treatment, because that's usually where we have most of our triage centers for incredibly bad injuries and wounds, is back in Germany. So everybody has to get loaded up on a plane and sent back to Germany at that point to actually get extensive medical treatment that not even a carrier would be able to do. Also, by the way, if y'all are wondering why I'm saying they'd be sent back to a carrier, most U.S. aircraft carriers have an extensive sick bay. It's quite literally the equivalent of an a surface-based hospital for the larger part, just on a slightly smaller scale. So they can handle most everything except for some of the absolute worst condition injuries, and then they have to send those guys all the way back to Ramstein to go get medical treatment there. So hopefully we don't hear about anything like that. I would hope that the ships made it through okay, but this is also showing us, folks, that they got near close to being overwhelmed. And like we were saying on the channel for weeks before, really stupid idea to send warships in without softening up the area to make it easier to deal with, and then seeing them fight for their lives as they're trying to run away from the area. In the meantime, though, we do have more breaking news coming out at this moment. So, Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so take this with a grain of salt, folks. I'm personally not buying this whatsoever. This seems to run contrary to everything I'm seeing right now. But the Israeli assessments are this: they're saying it's estimated that the exchange of blows between Iran and the U.S. has ended, and both sides have ceased their attacks. Take that with a big grain of salt. I am not seeing corroboration of that right now. I'm still seeing reports of aerial activities over some Iranian cities. And also, we're still hearing reports that Iran is going berserk. They're possibly attacking the UAE as well. And also, we're hearing reports of fighter jets making their way toward Iran. So I'm not so sure if Israel's putting out misinformation here to get the Iranians off guard or something. I'm not sure if that's what they're trying to do, or maybe they're just confused possibly. But I would take that with a grain of salt. But of course, what's your assessment?
I would take that with a grain of salt. It's likely that the Iranians are about to start conducting some larger attacks, because the fact that we just attacked their surface facilities in the HORMUZ is probably not boding with them all too well. And the Iranians, folks, always lean towards the most aggressive option historically over the past few months, and the most aggressive option would be a full resumption of military activities against us and our allies. So we could be expecting that major strikes would be coming soon. But to read y'all the statement that was put out from an Israeli assessment, in Israel, it's estimated that the exchange of blows between Iran and the U.S. in the Gulf region has ended, and both sides have ceased their attacks. The U.S. military withdrew the American destroyers from the Strait of Hormuz after returning fire at the Iranians and striking targets on Iranian territory. An Israeli source told Gali Tijal, or Tijal, I don't know, but that both sides were careful to keep the event limited with little friction. I would say that the fact that we're just hearing that the destroyers were literally firing with everything they had and were about to get overwhelmed, I'm assuming that that's not limited friction or little friction. That's called a lot of friction. The fact that these destroyers were basically fighting for their lives to escape the strait. So I would doubt that one.
Yeah, I would say so. It seemed, once again, I take every single side's statements with a grain of salt these days, including the U.S. statements. I take all of them with a grain of salt because we really need to, I guess you can trust but verify, but honestly, I distrust and I'll always verify on pretty much everything coming out these days, because it is a war, regardless of the fact that they want to call it like a special operation or whatever they're trying to call it. This is a war by definition. So in war, deception is naturally a part of it, and we're seeing the U.S. engage in deception. Obviously, Iran, they were engaging in deception before the war even started. They just love to lie. And then you see Israel engages in deception quite heavily as well when it comes to the war situation. So, you got to take even CENTCOM statements. Like I see people wanting to take those at face value as well. But you gotta hold off before you put full faith into it, because it is a war, and lying is part of it.
Also, we also had to make it clear, folks, that here on the channel we have a running sort of a scale that we use for reliability. If we see that sources have been given to us over a significant period of time that have a high reliability and they have never been proven untrue by corroborated information, then we generally take those statements at face value. For a very long time, we generally took the U.S. government at face value over the past several years, because every time we ever got corroborated information that was not given by the U.S. government, it would always back up the U.S. government statements and claims. However, as of late, when pertaining to the war in Iran, we have seen that many statements made by the U.S. government, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, CENTCOM's area of responsibility, and other commanders involved in the situation within the region, a large amount of the statements have been proven to be untrue by additional corroborated information, where we're actually able to independently verify whether the claim is true. With a first strike like that, we start to take things at face value, but we make sure to hedge it with we're waiting for additional information. The second strike, we start to say there's a decent chance that this may be incorrect, but we're going to look into it and make sure. The third strike, we start to say take it with a grain of salt, and this isn't verified and it may be completely untrue. Because by the third time that someone has come out with an important statement that is completely incorrect or false, we can largely start to assume that the reliability over that period of time is incredibly low, and we can't take things that they say at face value. CENTCOM was able to reach that qualification in this war almost in the first 2 weeks of the fight. So for that reason, they have already entered the third tier, which is the bottom tier of reliability for us, along with most of the U.S. government, to where when we hear claims or statements made by them, we have to tell you all that we take it with a grain of salt. This might be completely untrue, and we have to have some sort of independent verification. That's how it works. So just so that way people know here, because I know a lot of people are like, how in the world do you not take a U.S. government statement at face value, because that's been the running rule for years. We do have a sliding scale for that, and so far the U.S. government, by all accounts, has been proven to be fairly unreliable, and so sadly we have to go through verification to prove their claims at this point, and if we don't have verification, we have to take them with a grain of salt. But we are hearing significant news actually coming out, crazily enough, not out of the Middle East, but out of Eastern Europe, as Russia is under a significant attack at the moment. So Matthew, what are we hearing right now about that?
Okay, so it looks like Ukraine is beginning to exploit the fact that Russia has suddenly transferred all of their air defense systems from pretty much every region of the country to surround Moscow with literally hundreds of their top air defense systems. We are seeing attack after attack taking place right now in the Russian Federation, and there's largely no air defense being seen. That's because it's all been moved to Moscow. So it looks like Ukraine is taking advantage of that major gap that Putin has caused by wanting to protect himself inside of Moscow. So we're seeing literally attack after attack. We're seeing that the Luhansk region is taking hits. We're seeing that apparently Moscow is also under a drone raid as well. We're seeing apparently some aircraft redirecting from Moscow right now. And also, we just got word that due to the fears out of Moscow that Ukraine's going to try to strike the Victory Day parade, they have just banned all foreign media from being allowed into the Red Square, even on the Victory Day parade. They just did that. And also, they're starting to issue more threats at Ukraine as well. They're saying that they're violating the ceasefire that Putin unilaterally imposed on Ukraine, and they're issuing more threats. So it's heating up in both the Middle East and Russia and Ukraine as well. It's heating up in both regions simultaneously at this very moment.
Let's take a look at this clip that we got out of Luhansk. We can hear the sound of a drone. Let's say this person might be looking at the floor. Weirdly enough, there's glowing specks on the floor. Oh, actually they're looking at the city skyline sideways, and we now see an explosion. And also the sound of it as well.
And this is happening in several Russian cities, by the way. This is happening all over the place. And notice you didn't hear any air defense. Like, there was just like straight up attacks, and it was just peaceful until the Ukrainian drone hit. That was some pretty stupid planning on Russia's part to take away the air defense, because it looks like that was Ukraine's plan the entire time, was to make the Russians believe that they were going to attack the Victory Day parade, which honestly, there's still a possibility, actually. So, they can't do away with that threat altogether. But they did the most stupid thing possible and took away the air defenses from the very few places they actually had it around Russia and left it wide open.
Man, it's crazy, honestly. The Ukrainians have pulled off, folks, what we could describe as a masterclass of deception. They broadcasted for weeks that they were going to attack the May 9th parade. The Russians stripped everywhere of air defenses and moved them to Moscow. And then when the day comes that they're going to get towards attacking Moscow, they don't attack Moscow, and they attack everywhere else in Russia but Moscow that's now completely undefended. That, folks, is how you pull off a deception. That is a masterclass, literally a masterstroke at it. This is exactly what we did leading up to the invasion of Normandy in 1944, is that we made the Germans think that we were going one place, and when they stripped everywhere of all of its defenses and put them at Pas-de-Calais, then we struck them down at Normandy where they were their weakest. So it does appear that the Ukrainians are really working hard on that. But let's take a look at what's happening in Ryazan in Russia. Sounds like a drone. No air defense to be heard of in those 7 seconds over the city. So looks to me, folks, like the Russians really are stripped of air defense everywhere but Moscow. And also, by the way, I have to show you all the scope. Go ahead.
Well, also, real quick, go ahead and show them that, though, real quick. I don't want to jump all this too early, but I have some news coming out, some big news right now.
So this is the amount of air defenses that we know of that are around Moscow at the moment. A humongous amount of S-400 batteries, S-300 batteries, pantsiers, and also other forms of air defense systems, including manpads and mobile fire groups, which are also not represented on this map. Basically, the rest of the country's air defenses were moved to Moscow just for this parade. Literally nowhere else in the country is defended by air defenses of a conventional type at this point. But we actually have more news coming out at this moment. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so like we said, take the whole assessment right here. Also, I'm seeing mainstream media report this as well. They are, I hate to say this, but they're bullshitting to the extreme. Like this is not over yet. There's a brand new explosion being heard inside of Iran. This time, it's being reported in Sirik, from the sounds of it. It's in southern Iran, in the HORMUZ region inside of Iran. So that's a brand new explosion being reported there from the sounds of it. And we had already heard that location was under attack, and it looks like they're getting another round of attacks that we're hearing about apparently right now.
So it does appear that there are continued U.S. airstrikes still ongoing at this point inside of Sirik, which is suggesting two things. Either the U.S. is now conducting extended air operations even after the destroyers have left the area, or because destroyers don't move this quickly, the destroyers are still in the area, they're still under fire, and the U.S. is still striking IRGC forces wherever they're firing at these warships from, which that is also highly likely as well. It most likely is the latter option instead of the former, because these destroyers are not able to move out of the area immediately. I believe that we did the math one time in a transit of a U.S. destroyer from one end of the strait to the other, from, the opening of safety from one side to the opening of safety on the other, that would take probably 6 to 8 hours. So this entire event could be going on for hours, just the U.S. trying to defend these destroyers as they fight for their life to make it back out of the strait before this entire situation ends. And considering that this started, we believe, somewhere just south of Lorak Island, where this whole firefight began, they probably have another at this point, most likely another hour and a half left before they make it towards the opening of the Gulf of Oman and the end of the Strait of Hormuz. So they still have a little while to go at this point before these destroyers make it to safety. And honestly, folks, they probably are just somewhere south of Sirik and just north of Karkushi, right here along the coastline. What type of a name is that? Karkushi.
Man, I don't even know. That's a crazy name right there. That's kind of like a pause moment.
Hey, yo. Man, honestly, I just named that off the top of my head, and I was like, what type of a name is that, really?
Also, by the way, is Twitter working for you right now? Because it looks like it just went down across my multiple different devices here. Is it working?
It's working for me, but that might not be the case for long.
So it looks like I'm having trouble accessing it on both sites. I'll have to see if I can get access to it on a different one here. But in the meantime, though, sadly, I can't cover anything. I'll have to try to see if we can get the Twitter back.
And so in the meantime, we will be waiting to see if we get any more news coming out of the area at the moment right now. But also, by the way, folks, I actually heard that we got a brief picture, an image actually, Matthew, that just came out. I just found it, of the U.S. destroyers currently defending themselves from the incoming Iranian attack. And Matthew, would you like to see it? Do you think everyone would like to see it?
Yeah, let's see it.
So this is the picture that I heard of that was coming out just right now. We can actually see all of the air defense fire and everything else. It's a picture from the Second World War. But honestly, with the report that just came out from a U.S. official to CBS, I would assume it looks like that right now.
Yeah, it could be, actually. That's pretty rough looking right there. Also, by the way, my Twitter just started working partially. I'm still not getting all the images loading right now. But go check the crude oil price on Google real quick. Just type in crude oil price and see what it's showing right now for that. I'm seeing some reports that it could be spiking right now, but I'm not sure how high it is.
Apparently it's $78.81 a barrel.
Well, let's see it. That's not accurate.
I would assume not. I mean, that would be pretty insane. I mean, that's almost getting back to the pre-war figures of what we were seeing before the war kicked off. And I'm doubting that, folks, because we're actually running out of oil as we speak over the next few months. So
what's it showing? What's it showing the high is? You're looking at the 6 months chart. What's it showing the high was right there on that chart?
$78.73. That's why I showed 6 months.
Yeah, but you switched to the 1 day chart. They go back to the 6 month chart. 6M, and look at the high. What's that peak right there? Go hover your mouse over and see what the peak is on that chart.
The peak would have been $112.
Okay, so apparently this is the chart. I don't know what the hell's up with that. Maybe I don't know what's up with that. That doesn't sound accurate though.
Let me go look at Brent crude. Well, Brent crude is still sitting at $103.11. So something about the WTI crude price isn't adding up, because they're suggesting that apparently, let's see, when would that have been? On the 5th of May, it plummeted from $102.27 down to $77. Something about that is not making any sense, because there's no way in hell that oil just dropped almost $30 per barrel in a 24-hour period.
Yeah, that's not right there. I'm seeing other people say it's gone up 4%. That's why I was wanting to take a look at it there. So apparently it's going up higher, but that chart's not accurate.
No, this is not accurate at all. It's a Christmas miracle, everybody. Oil is almost back down to its pre-war price. Not. But anyways, everyone in the chat is saying that other charts are showing that it's about $97 right now. So definitely not accurate to say it's $78. It's nowhere close to being right. So that appears to be the oil price. Why were you wanting to look at that, pray tell?
I mean, it's like I said, other people were saying it was up 4%. So that's why I was wanting to take a look at it.
Oh, I see. But in the meantime, folks, we are going to be getting back to some questions, because it looks like we're seeing a slight lull in the news at the moment right now again, and since that is the case, we'll be getting to chit-chat with y'all for a little bit until the next piece of breaking news comes out. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right. So in the meantime, we did get a massive super chat. I mean, a massive one, literally the maximum, a $500 support from Griffin Provenzano. And a huge shout out to you, Griffin. That is the largest by far super chat of the night or of the day, actually. And we do appreciate that very, very much. That's extremely generous. He's literally trying to buy stock in the channel. We're not selling stock, but if we did, he'd be trying to buy it. But thank you very much, Griffin. He said, "I'm back, but I missed the start of the stream. What did I miss?"
Oh, well, much. You missed a lot. Yeah, so apparently, 3 U.S. destroyers tried to make it through the Strait of Hormuz just a little while ago. At some point, they attempted to fire on an Iranian oil tanker that was going to the port of Bandar Abbas. This then led to the IRGC responding by firing everything that they had at the U.S. warships, which then got them into what we're assuming is a life or death struggle. And in the midst of that all, they also sent out swarms of attack boats to try and overwhelm the ships and completely knock them out just by superior numbers. The warships fired everything that they had on deck, 25 millimeters, 50 calibers, the main deck gun, which is 127 millimeter, and also the Sea Whizzes as well, to be able to try and ward off these boats and also the incoming drones and missiles that were being fired simultaneously as well. And then in the meantime, the U.S. aircraft that were screening these warships as they were going through started airstrikes on the ports of Qeshm, Bandar Abbas, Sirik, Manab, all of the facilities within Manab County, and everything else that they could find within the area that attempted to be coordinating fire or was firing at the U.S. warships or continuing to attack them. At the moment right now, this is still an ongoing incident. In the meantime, also, there was some sort of an incident that occurred within Tehran that we're still covering at the moment. There's heavy air defense fire in that area and drones that have been reported over the city. And we've also seen that there is a humongous amount of aerial tankers airborne by the U.S. Air Force, which is suggesting that they're either getting ready for a major Iranian attack or they're getting a lot of aircraft up into the air to try and continue to cover the warships as they try and make it out of the strait. But from what we're understanding, that's the story that we're getting on all ends right now from the Middle East, and it is, without a minimum, a pretty wild occurrence. Basically a humongous battle of the Battle of the Hormuz is going on at this moment right now, and we're just getting some glimpses and images here and there of what's going on as a result of that. But a humongous thanks to you for that unbelievably incredible support, Griffin Provenzano, and I hope that it answers your question incredibly well. We welcome you back. We welcome you back with open arms. There's been a lot going on around the world lately, and we're happy to have you back, and I gotta say a humongous thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, we wouldn't be able to keep it running, and we wouldn't be able to keep covering the news as we have been for some time. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and with that, we're on to the next one.
And moving on to our next one here. This one goes to Moby Duck. And thank you very much, Moby Duck, for that support. He claims that an Iranian desalination plant was hit, LOSA. Now, I will say, thank you for that support, but I've not been able to verify that. And in fact, I've not even seen an initial report claiming that. So I'm not sure where that report came from right there, but I haven't seen anything like that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I haven't seen anything like that myself, so unfortunately I don't think we can confirm that one, but I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here and keep covering the news. If we get any news about something like that, we'll try and verify it, but I would say that that's unlikely at the moment, because right now, from what we understand, U.S. actions are limited to defensives only against incoming attacks against the warships, and generally desalination plants are rarely, if ever, used as military installations. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, by the way, we are getting some more breaking news here. There's a video that's circulating which claims to be out of the UAE, but once again, I'm sort of a little bit doubtful about that because right now they're literally arresting people for filming and uploading, so it's very risky. But if you want to take a look at the video, we can analyze it here on the air and see if it looks like it's accurate. But I mean, they're claiming it's from the UAE, but I'm not sure.
Let's take a look. It could be, but there's no identifying landmarks that would let us know that for sure. So maybe it is from the United Arabs.
Time in the UAE. Right now it's 2:17 a.m. So the darkness outside does match up with the current time there. Let's see what the weather's like in the UAE because it looks like it's a little bit cloudy, even though it's nighttime. So right now it's 83 degrees Fahrenheit, 74% humidity, and the weather is completely clear with no clouds. Are we seeing clouds here in this video?
Some level of clouds, but then again, like here in Utah, it'll say like, it's perfectly clear outside and then there's clouds. So I mean, like not like heavy cloud cover, but there's still some. Well, it enters the wide open right there. I think this is just like a sporadic cloud that it was flying through at the beginning of the clip, because there at the end, it clearly wasn't in clouds when it exploded.
It says here it's mostly clear. A sporadic cloud may be visible, so that might actually match up with the video somewhat, maybe, possibly. But I'm a little bit on the fence about this one. I'm not totally convinced, but it's possible. But I'm not totally convinced.
I'm not entirely convinced either, but it seems plausible that this might be from the UAE. Right now, at the moment, folks, the UAE police just said, "Oh, Bibi, what is it? What, did someone break out from one of our, camps, kind of like labor camp things? No, somebody filmed the Patriot firing. We gotta find this guy and arrest him." It's like, man, they got their priorities right in the UAE, I suppose, I guess. A little bit odd, though, to be entirely frank with y'all, that a country that really leans heavily into tourism would be so draconian about people filming and publishing stuff like this, because generally that's going to keep people from going there, hearing about those kinds of restrictive laws. And then also on top of that, it's not like it's going to help them out anyways, because everybody already knows that they're under attack everywhere in the world. So it's not like people filming that and publishing it is really going to be harming their tourism. It's already been harmed greatly because nobody wants to go to Dubai in the middle of an active war zone. So a little bit odd to me with that, but we'll have to see if that video can ever be verified as accurate. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Salt, and thank you very much, Salt, for that 20, and we do appreciate that very much. No comment to address, but once again, a big shout out for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
Hey, and a big thanks to you for the support, Salt K. You didn't throw in a comment, but we are greatly appreciative of your support, and we thank you massively for helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. And also, I just saw Griffin Provenzano ask the question, why is the UAE arresting people? Is it supposed to be operational security? Not quite. It's more so, like Matthew just responded, about narrative control. The United Arab Emirates has a significant tourism industry, and also it puts a significant amount into its perception and public image internationally around the world, as they want to paint themselves to be a super safe and super great place to be for everybody in the world, and a place that people would want to travel to in the millions, tens of millions really, every single year. And the United Arab Emirates believes that people filming and publishing videos and pictures of the attacks and damage in air defense that's going on over their country will negatively hurt the nation's image and significantly impact its tourism, not only within the short term, but in the long term, which will also damage the UAE's economy. As a result of that, the UAE has passed a round of emergency laws in their country at the very beginning of the war, banning people from filming and publishing any pictures or videos of any attacks or damage that is caused by these attacks throughout the entirety of the country. If you you are found to have uploaded any of that online due to the UAE cybersecurity forces, they will arrest you and imprison you with significant fines and prison time as a result of taking pictures or filming any of the attacks, air defense, or damage caused by any of those engagements whatsoever. So the truth of it is it has nothing to do with operational security. It more so has to do with them trying to protect their image. So I hope that does answer your question well, Griffin. Great question, by the way. But with that, we actually have breaking news coming out at this moment of low altitude fighter activity over Baghdad. What do we got, Matthew?
Okay, so we're getting more reports that there are more low-level, low-flying fighter jet activity, not low-level, but low-flying fighter jet activity over Baghdad right now, and apparently it's nonstop fighters passing over the airspace of Baghdad. That's what it sounds like. So it sounds like the cavalry's coming in. That's what it sounds like to me initially right off the bat. We don't know if they're making their way toward Iran or they're simply providing air defense cover over the area, perhaps. We do know that there is a lot of U.S. Air Force tanker activity with their transponders off over the Iraqi airspace right now. So we believe they're supporting the transit of fighter jets over Iraq. We've also heard fighter jet activity over Kuwait as well. So it seems to me like my guess is they are currently in transit to Iran to get ready for activities there. That's my guess, but they could be just providing air defense support perhaps.
Most likely so. I would assume that they're most likely still on their way out, and they're keeping at a low altitude to make sure that they're not picked up as easily by any possibly active Iranian air search radars that are active inside their country. But before we move on from that and into our next question, I just saw someone ask, and Ghostmorn asked the question. They said, "I don't understand people illegally filming Ukrainian surface-to-air batteries or Russian spies, but the UAE has a freedom of speech problem for the same thing." You're missing a lot of nuance there in that statement. The United Arab Emirates is not arresting people for filming the exact locations of military forces. The United Arab Emirates is arresting anybody for filming anything at all that has to do with the ongoing war. In Ukraine, if the Russians obliterate, say, a building in Vinnytsia, the Ukrainian citizen can walk outside, film that missile come in, slam into that building, and also the destruction and damage of that building afterwards and the fire and the smoldering wreckage and ruins of the building. That is completely legal in Ukraine. What is not legal, however, is for a Ukrainian citizen to go up to a Ukrainian air defense battery and go, "Look, I'm right outside of Bila Sverka, and right here near to this forested tree line, there's an entire MIM-104 Patriot air defense battery that's operating here defending the airspace." That gives away the position of a Ukrainian armed forces defense system, and that is illegal. What the UAE is doing, on the other hand, is they're saying, filming our forces is illegal, which is completely reasonable, but filming any air defense action in general is illegal, filming incoming Iranian drones and missiles is illegal, and filming any aftermath damage caused by those attacks is also illegal as well. Any of that can result in you being arrested and put in prison if you film any of that. That is the nuance and difference between the two that makes the UAE have a freedom of speech problem there, because the Ukrainians are not that draconian and not that restrictive. They only restrict what is necessary to ensure the safety of their armed forces. The UAE is restricting and banning anybody from filming anything, even if it doesn't have to do with operational security. That's where the problem lies, and there's the nuance that makes those situations completely different. But with that, I hope that addresses that well, and the reason why there's a huge difference in between the two. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Music Uploader, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much for the support, by the way. And they said, hello, and LOC. And I'd like to say that as much as I love watching and supporting you guys, it's becoming a little bit unbearable and nerve-wracking for me to hear about all this stupidity taking place repeatedly.
I thank you so much for the support, Music Uploader, and it is a fair bit nerve-wracking. I gotta say, it's fairly nerve-wracking for me as well. That's why I get pretty sarcastic when I cover the stuff sometimes, because it just gets very aggravating to me and very stressful to think sometimes how badly managed the situation is, and some people are just absolutely nose blind to it, and no matter if you're nose blind to it or not, it just keeps going this way. So I'd have to agree, it's definitely nerve-wracking with it, but I hope that you do stick with us through this coverage, because we are certainly living through historical times, to say the least, and you'll definitely have something to talk about in the future to folks, the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you stick around. So a huge thanks to you for support, Music Uploader, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to cover the news, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything in between. So huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have here, let's see here. Hold on a second. Let's see here. Let's see, where did he make this statement? The president's made a statement. I'm trying to double check and make sure he said this. I always try to verify because some people like to put words in his mouth. Oh, I can't reach their site. Let's see here. Can you reach the Truth Social site on your side screen, by the way? Because right now I am not able to reach it. Let me see if you can reach it.
Let's see here. Let me see if I can, folks. Let me see if I can.
Oh, I just got it. I just got it right now. Let's see here. Hold on a second. I'm trying to verify something, trying to see if I can get verification. And it's not on True Social. So if he made this statement, he made it somewhere else. So I'll just report this and say allegedly because I need to verify this directly myself first before we like put our full weight behind. Yeah, I know. I just checked on True Social. But so right now we're seeing reports. This is coming from 5 News on Twitter right now. They're claiming, this is what they're claiming, but like I said, take it with a grain of salt. I can't verify it independently, so he may or may not have said those. The president allegedly said that the ceasefire with Iran is still ongoing and the retaliatory strikes on Iran were just a love tap. That's what's being said right now. So, like I said, take that with a grain of salt. I would prefer to see a video of him saying that directly. Right now, it appears to be people are quoting him and saying that's what he said, but we can't say that for a fact. But Enforcer, what say you?
In other words, I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. Ooh, I am for real. Beyond that, I would have to say I don't know if that statement was made. We didn't see it on Truth Social, folks. Both of us looked and it wasn't there. So we don't know if he actually made that statement or not. But if he did, that's
okay. Actually, let's see here. So they're saying ABC News is the one that got that statement. Let's see. Let me see if I can get that and verify that on ABC News's website. Let's see here. So ABC News. So I'm seeing a lot of people repeating that claim. They're saying it went to ABC News here. Let's see here. ABC News. I'm trying to double check and fact check this live on the air real quick. What the hell is going on? Like I know none of these sites are pulling up properly.
And there's your computer.
Let me go pull it up on my second. Yeah, my computer's fine. Let's see here. So apparently, here's some live updates. Let's see if you said that. Let's see here. I'm not seeing that on ABC News's website directly, so I'm not saying that people are misquoting it. We don't know yet. We'll have to find out. But right now, though, I'm not seeing any corroboration on ABC News's website, though, on that.
Maybe he said it on air and they just haven't published anything in written text about it yet.
Maybe so, possibly. We'll have to wait and see, though. But I don't see it on Truth Social, and I don't see it on their website either.
I'm going to have to say, folks, I'm doubting this one for now because people can post everything that they like in other sources and other places. But the thing about that is, folks, is that if we don't have anywhere like Truth Social or anywhere where it's written or recorded or something where we can actually confirm that you said it, you may have not said that at all. I mean, it doesn't sound out of character for him to say it was a love tap. So I mean, that's not out of the question that may have been said, but we have no proof for it at all right now. So take it with a grain of salt, folks, until we can get some further confirmation on it.
So here's where it came from. Apparently, it came from a tweet. It looks like Rachel Scott put this out, and Rachel Scott says in her bio, says senior political correspondent covering the White House and Congress for ABC. So this came from Rachel Scott, it appears. It says, President Trump tells me in a phone call the retaliatory strikes against Iranian targets are just a love tap. It's just a love tap, he said. And also when the reporter asked if it means that the ceasefire is over, apparently and allegedly, the president said, no, the ceasefire is going, it's in effect. So that's what Rachel Scott of ABC News is currently claiming that he said. So that's insanity, by the way. This isn't I don't even know what the hell a love tap even is. I'm not even really sure what that even means. But this isn't. There's nothing loving about exchanging gunfire. There's nothing loving about that. So Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say, folks, I don't really love the Islamic regime, so a love tap is a pretty goofy way of putting that. That'd be like saying, oh, the U.S. Army in World War II, we just bombed Cologne. It was a love tap to Hitler. It's like, we're not really love tapping enemies, you know what I mean, folks? Like, we're at war with them in those particular instances. We're at war with the Iranians. 3 destroyers are fighting for their life right now to still escape the strait. And the way that we're going to describe this whole thing is just a little misunderstanding and a little love tap and all. I mean, this is getting delusional at this point, folks. We could see that a destroyer ended up being damaged out of this whole deal. We've yet to see that, whether they were or weren't. And we'll definitely know, folks, if one of them ends up scooting out to Diego Garcia or scooting out of the theater at large to go back to the United States, one of them was definitely damaged. We'll find that out in the future. And downplaying everything and making it sound like the Iranians just tried to destroy 3 U.S. destroyers and we're still in a ceasefire, The ridiculousness of this is insane. The Hezbollah forces in southern Lebanon can just look at the Israelis the wrong way, and Israel can start a whole war with Hezbollah over that again, and that's completely justified. But God forbid the U.S. ever responds to an act of war by the Iranians in any situation, because that clearly isn't breaking the ceasefire for them to attack everybody again in the region for the sixth time now, since we declared that the ceasefire is in effect, because clearly that's not a violation of the ceasefire for them to conduct warlike activities. Insanity at this point. I don't even know where to go with it anymore, what to say, because it's a complete denial of reality. This is quite literally living in just insanity land. The Iranians just shot at us. Destroyers are still fighting for their life to escape the strait. We bombed the Iranian coastline, and the Iranians are saying that they're going to respond, and yet somehow the U.S. government will still say that the ceasefire is in effect and everything's fine, and it was just a little comeuppance. That's ridiculous.
Well, you know what this means is if that quote right there is accurate that Rachel Scott's putting out from her phone call there, if that's accurate, that means the U.S. is carrying out the plan that we saw in the reports about a week ago, that they were going to try short and powerful strikes on the Iranian regime to get them to come to the negotiating table, which that logic, I think most people will agree with me, that logic is flawed. Negotiating requires good faith, and also requires cooperation and mutual understanding between the two parties. If the parties are exchanging gunfire with each other, that means that there's no deal on the table. That's the way I think most sensible people will interpret that. So if that's what they're trying to do, then this is doomed to fail from the get-go. Not that the Iranians were going to come to a deal anyway. Like, I'm not trying to fool anybody. That the Iranians weren't going to make a deal anyway. They don't want a deal. They're extremists. They want to take the United States down. That's what they want to do. So it's just wild. Like, this should be a resumption of the fighting tonight. It's what it should be, but it's apparently, according to what we're hearing, it won't be. But we'll have to see, though. It could be maybe just double speak.
It could be, but you never know. I mean, at this point, they seem just hell-bent and adamant about downplaying everything. I'll tell you this, man, if this keeps up, the Gulf state nations are about to start kicking us out again like they did last night, because they're going to get, they're sick and tired of this, and they're absolutely fed up with it, with their response already yesterday. And then our response was to beg them to reopen the bases, and they did, for us to use. And now we're back to doing what we did to piss them off yesterday, which is downplaying everything to the point that it sounds like it's no big deal at all, that they literally just attacked us again. I mean, I gotta tell y'all, folks, I remember watching this before, a couple of years back in 2024 with the Houthis. And I remember that the Houthis were attacking U.S. warships down there in the Bab el-Mandeb. And I was saying that it's an absolute sign of weakness that we're not doing any offensive actions to them yet, and we're just pretending like none of this is a big deal, because that's what the last administration did. And everybody was agreeing with me then that it was portraying the United States as exceptionally weak. If this is our response to the Iranians attacking us again for the second time in 3 days, then the U.S. is looking as weak now, weaker even now, than it did back then in 2024 with the Houthis. This is ridiculous. The Iranians are attacking us every day, and our response is to act like it's not even happening. There are sailors of the U.S. Navy on these ships, people who we are charged with the responsibility of, for good and for better, that are being attacked right now. We're going to pretend like this is no big deal. This is just stupid. But we have more breaking news coming out at the moment right now. So, Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so right now we're getting some more breaking news. Let me grab one thing here for the live chat, and then we're going to jump to the breaking news. So right now we're seeing a video allegedly showing the explosions in Shiraz, Iran. Now we're also hearing from Iranian press TV that following the exchange of fire in the past few hours, the situation on the Iranian islands and coastal cities by the Strait of Hormuz is largely back to normal at this point. So that seems to line up with the U.S. mainstream media reports that everything's back to normal. But I find that hard to believe, though, is that we're still hearing reports of air defense activity. So how can it be back to normal? But, you know, if you believe, I mean, both sides are saying at this point, the U.S. mainstream media and the Iranian media are saying it's largely over. So apparently it's over, I guess.
I suppose so, but we did have this clip as well of some activity over Shiraz. So let's take a look at this. Oh. Those are definitely airstrikes.
Why does it sound like it's in slow motion?
I think it is. But that definitely sounded like a bomb whooshing in and then slamming into a target right there, so the U.S. airstrikes weren't just conducted on the coast, they were conducted in Shiraz as well. So definitely not love tap. Like this was basically almost a near regional wide airstrike campaign that we just conducted on them. They just attempted to destroy 3 U.S. warships. I don't even know where to go with this at this point, folks. I don't even know. It is what it is. So with that, we are going to be moving back into the questions. So what do we got, Matthew?
So moving back into our questions in the meantime, we do have a $20 support from AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang. And thank you very much for that support, by the way. They said, hearing the news while at work, and thank you.
And a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Peter Burrow, also known as Flash1, and thank you very much, Flash, for that support. He said, hello, enforcers, and you do a brilliant job. He said, great to be here for a while, and I hope you're both getting plenty of rest, too, and LSA.
And a big thanks to you for support, Peter Burrow. And thank you so much for the kind words. We try our best, and I hope that we've been able to make this show a pretty decent one. I gotta say, folks, I didn't eat before this show, so I'm actually in the midst of starving again at this moment. The starving diet's becoming a fairly common one around here these days, because of the price of everything. But beyond that, I gotta say that we try our best, and I hope that it's been a high-quality news coverage so far over the 2 hours and 40 minutes that we've been doing this. And I thank you so much for enjoying the channel and supporting it, so that way we can keep making this kind of coverage possible. So huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, so we have a Truth Social post that just came out. Let me send a screenshot to Twitter real quick. Give me just a second here. Stall for just a minute while I make this post.
All right, so in the midst of all this, folks, we're finally getting an official statement by the President of the United States on the Truth Social. So we'll be seeing here in a moment what exactly he's saying. And hopefully it's not what we just heard about the whole love tap deal, but I have a feeling that it could be anything, and we'll have to see what the U.S. response to this situation is at the moment. Hopefully Matthew will be able to have this up soon, so that way we can go to Twitter and read this directly here in just a brief moment. In the meantime, though, I see that a lot of people are talking about the situation in the chat and their own personal opinions, and we're about to be seeing if those opinions end up being correct or not. So Matthew, do we have that on Twitter yet?
It's about to go up in just a second.
It's about to go up in just a second, folks. Not that much longer. The anticipation is worth it. They say good things come to those who wait, and we'll certainly be seeing some incredibly good things to those who wait. And here it is, folks. We have it. 3 world-class American destroyers just transited very successfully out of the Strait of Hormuz under fire. There was no damage done to the 3 destroyers, but great damage done to the Iranian attackers. They were completely destroyed along with numerous small boats which are being used to take the place of their fully decapitated navy. These boats went to the bottom of the sea quickly and efficiently. Missiles were shot at our destroyers and were easily knocked down. Likewise, drones came and were incinerated while in the air. They dropped ever so beautifully down to the ocean, very much like a butterfly dropping to its grave. A normal country would have allowed these destroyers to pass, but Iran is not a normal country. They are led by lunatics, and if they had the chance to use a nuclear weapon, they would do it without question. But they'll never have that opportunity, and just like we knocked them out again today, we'll knock them out a lot harder and a lot more violently in the future if they don't get their deal signed fast. Our 3 destroyers with their wonderful crews will now rejoin our naval blockade, which is truly a wall of steel. President of the United States.
All right, well, oh man. So yeah, I mean, people can make up their own minds about that one and come to their own conclusion on it. I think everybody already knows where we stand on stuff like this. I think we've made that very, very clear at this point. But I don't think this little game right here. I think this game right here has gotten old with folks. For the most part, I think it's gotten old. So I'm not sure if it's going to work the way he thinks it's going to work. This statement right here, but yeah, it is what it is.
I don't even find this one worth addressing, folks. Y'all can have your own opinions on it. I don't even think I need to tell y'all anything on it. But anyways, we're going to be moving back into the questions. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our next super chat is going to go to none other than Eric Brown, and thank you very much, Eric, for that $20 support. He said, "Hello, enforcers." Yeah. Oh, well, actually, I just read that one off. Actually, I forgot to put a little thing on it. But thank you very much to Eric Brown for the $20 support. We do appreciate that. And Eric said, "Some good news: a piece of legislation called the Maverick Act is going through approval before Congress. Its stated purpose is to preserve the last 3 Tomcats and to make at least one airworthy."
Oh wow, that's really cool actually, Eric. And that would be neat to know that we have at least one remaining flying F-14 here in the United States, because it would be a very neat thing for the US public to see. So that's really cool actually. And a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, because folks like you help to make this thing possible and help us to keep it running. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a support from none other than Zero, and thank you, Zero, for that 20, and we do appreciate that. Zero said, not usually able to catch y'all live anymore, but seeing as y'all are usually ending the show as I'm getting up for work, that being said, keep up the great work, and y'all make my workday just a tad bit smoother.
And a big thanks to you for the support, Zero. And I gotta say, thank you so much for enjoying these shows. We try our best to make the days a little bit smoother for folks, and I hope that we are able to do that regardless of the news, and make it interesting to listen to, and also get everybody their fill of news for the day on what's going on and what's actually going to be unfolding over the next several days, hopefully, with our analysis. So big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Delaware, and thank you, Delaware, for that $20 support. They said thank you and LSA.
And a big thank you to you, Delaware. I see what they said. Like Delaware, like the state, but it says Delaware. Oh, man, that's a good one. And long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never truly die. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have here a 20 from Devin DeBro, and thank you, Devin, for that $20 support. He said, without going into things Matt's nervous about, aside from the drones or point-blank RPGs, I put my money on the ships. 15 destroyers versus even 100 fabs outside of 1,000 yards doesn't worry me. The drone threat, though, and puts in the thinking face.
Well, I would say that it worried me, because a destroyer only has an ability to deal with so many targets so quickly and so much ammunition to deal with a finite number, that you can get a ship into a risky situation, being a little overconfident, and that's why we want to make sure to be not overconfident, because there are people's lives at stake. If we're overconfident and we overestimate our abilities, people are going to die as a result of that. And so a lot of people might not be those folks that had to put on the uniform of the U.S. Navy this morning and go out to sea, and so a lot of people might be cavalier with their lives, but I have a feeling that a lot of y'all wouldn't be that cavalier if it was you in that uniform on that ship, and the idea of someone just gallivantly sending you possibly into your death, and not really caring about it at all. At that point, we end up being the careless people that we joke about in Russia, who send their own countrymen in the millions to their early graves in Ukraine. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that well. And before we move on to the next one, I actually saw someone bring up a point in the chat. Someone said, funny how many, well, it was Michael actually, funny how many, including the enforcers, thinks they're experts on anything and everything. Well, we're not experts on anything and everything. Michael, you've been around long enough to know that we eat our foot on a lot of our comments, because they sometimes end up being correct, and we're not experts. We don't go around saying that we are. But one thing that I will say is that we're pretty accurate with what we say and what we analyze and what we talk about. And, as far as having a running track record of, predicting things and them turning out to be true, we're doing better than the current administration. And if they're considered experts, then we certainly could be considered an expert, although I don't really think that claim would be necessary. So I hope that answers your statement well, because we don't know everything, but I'll tell you that we currently know a lot more than the current administration carrying out the war, because we've been able to say how many things would end up being a bad idea, and they've ended up being bad ideas once they tried to follow through with their plans, which we said were not great ones. Generally the track record speaks for itself. I don't have to go around saying we're an expert. You can just look at our analysis and our predictions, and about 85% of the time they end up being correct. 15% of the time they're wrong, and that's shooting pretty good odds at that point. So with that, we're on to the next one.
Our next super chat goes to Old Warrior Fellow, who puts in a $20 support, and thank you very much, Old Warrior, as well, for that support. He said, even if they took some damage, that is naval combat experience beyond price, and those crews are now blooded.
And I thank you for the support, Old Warrior fella, and I suppose that could be true to a degree, but the problem is that if a vessel like a modern early Burke takes damage, a critical system of some sort has mostly been knocked out of action, which would force that Burke out of the fight and have to send it back to the United States for refit. So while those crews may now be battle-hardened and experienced to the umpteenth degree, the vessel is going to be out of action for months, meaning that we would have to rotate a new destroyer into the area, which is not going to be battle experienced, and that destroyer, that Burke, may be here in a dry dock for months being repaired from the damage that it sustained from the attack. So I would say that definitely is true, at least in having seasoned sailors. but we generally don't need seasoned sailors per se in the modern day. Most everything's done on a computer in a weapons control room on that ship. So having like actual blooded seasoned sailors these days doesn't really make all too much of a difference, because generally they're fighting their enemies from normally hundreds of miles away where they never see them in the perfect world. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from none other than Moby Duck. And thank you, Moby, for that support once again. And he said, looking at the timeline, the Iran tanker rudder shot at this morning. The Iran retaliate with fast attack swarms. We retaliate on bomb and Pier and Qeshm Island to destroy the fast attack ports. And now tankers are airborne and prepping for the next wave in LSA.
That seems to be a pretty accurate sort of of a timeline right there for the larger part. As far as the tankers being airborne, we don't know exactly what they're doing right now. We have two ideas of what could be happening, but we're not entirely sure which. But everything else about that timeline's basically dead to rights. So a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We've also got support from Give Up Now. You just put in a $100 support, by the way, a big one. Thank you very much, Give Up Now, for that big $100 support and helping to keep the channel running with that support. And Give Up Now said, here is money. Love tap for LSA. Hey. Also, they said, Spike sends regards and Yardbird funds.
And I thank you for the support, and a huge regards to Spike as well. And I got to say, thank you so much for the Yardbird funds. I don't know what a Yardbird fund is, but
that's chicken.
Oh, Matthew, chicken. What is wrong, man? Oh, man, what is wrong, Colonel Sanders? Chicken. But anyways, beyond that, I do have to say a big thanks to your support. Give Up Now, and I got to say thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And long live the Lee Spring Army, because the Lee Spring Army will never truly die. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have $11 support from Jack Ray, and thank you very much, Jack, for that $11 support. He said, it seems like someone is waging war via internet argument, and remember the old meme, arguing on the internet is like running the certain Olympics here. He's got a little joke here at the end. I can't read off that whole joke right there. That one might get us canceled, but thank you very much, Jack, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
Well, I thank you for the support, Jack, and there's a lot of wars raged on the internet all the time, every day. And I would have to say that it's just really interesting, you know, how many arguments people come in the chat. You know, like, I gotta say, it's funny, folks, because every single time, like, most times, not all the time, but most times it's absolutely ironic, because we'll sit there and go, oh, so this is what happened, you know, and then explain literally what CENTCOM put out 30 minutes after we said it on air, and then as we say that, someone will come in, you unpatriotic bastard, like get pissed off at us, we have to ban them, and then it ends up that literally what we said happened is what CENTCOM said happened. So I gotta thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we got a 10 from Justin, who said, are we having Costco chicken early? And of course we're having Costco chicken early. We gotta have that Costco chicken early, because it is sustenance for us. And honestly, at this point, folks, right now, I could go for one of them Costco chickens. I'm starving right now. Starved, I tell you. I didn't eat anything before this show. I actually kind of slept in a little bit today, just trying to make sure to keep myself ready to go on a high alert in Enforcer HQ, because of the whole events going on, I haven't been able to get out and do anything, so I decided to take the time to sleep in a little bit. And as soon as I woke up, this whole thing happened, and I had to go live, so I didn't even eat anything this morning. I've just been, you know, running on empty here. Food review. But a big thanks to you so much for the support, Justin, help this channel to keep on running. And hopefully, there is a Costco chicken in my future after this show. We also have a 10 from Jennifer, who didn't throw in a comment. Well, hey! And a big thanks to you for the support, Jennifer, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep talking about those succulent Costco chickens, which are definitely making me hungry. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to none other than Z1, who puts in a 10, and thank you very much, Z1, for that support. He said, with 2 kids serving in the military, I appreciate these updates.
And I thank you so much for the support, Z1, and helping this channel to keep it running. And thank you so much for appreciating the updates. We try and keep folks like your kids and mine when we talk about war planning and strategy here on the channel, because a lot of people like to act like they're detached from the idea of service members getting wounded and killed. But I always like to think of folks like you who have kids, your own children that are in the armed services, and to think about their safety and well-being in the midst of a war. War is always dangerous, and people always get wounded and killed in a war. But the philosophy of the United States over its entire history is that if we must fight a war, if it is necessary, we should make sure that as little of our sons and daughters of this republic are wounded and killed in that war, and they're only wounded and killed if there is no other option or there is no way out at that point, then that's sort of an unfortunate conclusion. But a big thanks to you for the support and enjoying our updates and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Moby Duck, and he said the fog of war is unreal right now in LSA.
And a big thanks to your support, Moby Duck. And I'd have to say that the fog of war really is unreal at this point. And then also the fog of the brain is very unreal at this point as well in some people. I love tapping a wall. Oh man, how funny. You know, it's just our citizens of the republic that are finding themselves put in harm's way, and only 13 of them have died so far. I think it was actually 16 of them at this point have only died so far in the war. You know, hey, nothing, no big deal, right? I just find it aggravates me greatly, folks. It really does, because I remember back in the day, this whole thing that happened around Kabul back in 2021. And back then, there was this guy who came up to the gate with a bomb, and he blew it up, and he killed about 8 Marines at the perimeter of the Kabul airfield. And I remember when that was a huge deal, and everybody said that that was wrong, and it was not justified, that a military operation was messed up so badly that U.S. soldiers had to die for it. And I'd agreed with that completely, because I do believe that. I believe that we should conduct a military operation as soundly as we can, to where if somebody is wounded or killed, it was in such small numbers that there was no better that we could have done. And then on top of that, it should be, if there was no other way out, or it was just a surprise occurrence, that was just a fluke. That's how I generally think about it. And watching stuff like this happen, and we just basically, well, not everybody, but some people in the country just try and downplay it and act like lives don't matter anymore, is ridiculous to me. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And we actually have more breaking news coming out at this moment. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so right now, there's an ongoing major drone attack on Russia, by the way, and of course, Moscow is currently under attack. We're seeing aircraft get diverted all over the place, but there's several targets currently under attack by Ukraine right now. This is a very big attack. Right now, we're seeing the Yaroslav oil refinery is currently blazing, bigger than I've ever seen it blaze right now. So let's take a look at the video and see what's happening in Yaroslav.
Opa. The fire is
Damn, son, that's a big one.
The fire is close to a road, and I'm assuming that they're driving south past the refinery. So the fire is somewhere here near to this road area, somewhere within one of these little quarters of the refinery. So that's quite interesting. It looks like they might have actually hit a condenser tower. There is one that looks to be about right here, actually. There's actually what would appear to be a couple of condensers across the refinery, but it looks like they definitely hit one at this point.
Yeah, it looks like they definitely have. This is a pretty big, serious fire that we're seeing here. And once again, largely undefended. All the air defense has been moved to Moscow, although I don't think Yaroslav was defended by air defense anyway, so it was already wide open.
Yeah, I would have to say, like, you know, the Ukrainians are just taking advantage of the situation that they made for themselves, which was a great one, really. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I possibly can. And a big thanks to Enforcer Man for covering that breaking news right there for us. And also appears, Mandy, that we're hearing that Moscow's getting some little airspace restrictions. Do you want to tell the folks about that?
Moscow, Moscow, me, mama, me, mama, me, mama, me, mama. I don't even know the words, but that's kind of how it goes, a little bit, something like that. But Moscow's not singing the praises of the USSR anymore. They're really not singing it. It looks like it's going quite ugly right now. So I think Putin and his new little ceasefire didn't work out that well.
Uh-oh. Matthew, are you there? Are you there, Matthew? Talk to us, Matthew. He just disappeared, everybody. He just disappeared. the unbelievableness of this. Hold up, folks. I gotta try and get the Discord up and running again. My voice is connected fine, folks, by the way. But we gotta try and get that Discord back up and running, fellas, because we gotta get this thing rolling. People are demanding the news, and we gotta give it to them. So, let us hopefully get this back up and running, everybody. Let's get it back up and running. Hello there? Hello? Oh my goodness, folks, they've got him. They've got Matthew. Oh, God, what are we going to do? Discord is just completely down, apparently, at this point. So, hey, we'll have to see what happens. So outside of that, though, to get to the story that Matthew was going to cover before they nabbed him. So we have been able to hear that all the airports around Moscow are now restricting incoming and outbound aircraft as a result of the drones in the region. Aircraft that were supposed to land are now reportedly in a holding pattern above the airports. So we do understand that the Moscow area is under some sort of a perceived threat of a drone attack. We're not entirely sure if that is being conducted at this point, but we will have to see, because right now over there, it's the 8th of May, and they ain't having a good time the day before that parade. Oh, heavens be. Who would have ever thunk it? Who would have ever guessed it? Let's go up there and look at the Moscow area. Oh, probably yet. They got him in a holding pattern. Oh, man. I gotta tell y'all, folks, something else right there. Something else really impressive. Really impressive right there. I gotta say, the Ukrainians are doing another masterclass in how to mess with the enemy country. So with that, it is time for us to move on from that little bit of news right there. Big thanks to Enforcer Matt for getting that news for us to cover on air. And moving us on back into our questions, we also got a 10 from Mario Speedrun. Hey, and a big thanks to you for the support. Who said, watching the breaking news, my guinea pig. Please say hi to Margaret the guinea pig. She is an elder. And a big hello to Margaret the guinea pig. We love guinea pigs. Guinea pigs are great. You know, folks, we love the guinea pigs. They're amazing creatures, cute little things, and they have these cute little chirping noises that they make. Amazing animals, really. And I heard that they taste good, too. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And once again, a big hello to Margaret the guinea pig, a wonderful and incredible elder. We also had a 20 from Give Up Now. Hey, who didn't throw in a comment, but we massively thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible and help us to keep this thing running. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one, which is a 10 from Justin R., who said the president is desperate to get a deal and get out of this conflict. Well, maybe. I wouldn't be able to say for sure, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And we also got a 10 from Cody, who said, good evening, gentlemen, from the East Coast. Love the channel. Are you guys tried of the Deal or No Deal reruns with Iran reruns? Enjoy the coffee money. And I thank you massively for the support all the way from the East Coast over here in Utah. We're kind of out on our own. You know, it's crazy, folks, because the next major cities near to Salt Lake City are just Ogden and Provo, which are basically the same metro area, and you would have to go either 300 miles to Boise to get to the next major city, or you'd have to go about 400 miles to Denver, Colorado. Kind of a crazy sort of a thing right there, folks. A really crazy thing when you think about it. We're basically in the middle of nowhere at this point. But still, a big shout out to all the folks over there on the East Coast. And thank you so much for the coffee funds. We will be making sure to use that quite well. And a huge thanks to you so much once again. And we also have a 20 from AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who said, I went on a New Zealand frigate and got to see some of those close range weapons. I'm shocked the U.S. destroyers had Iran get that close. Me personally, I am as well, and that is showing that they were starting to get overwhelmed. People who are saying that the situation was clearly in control don't know how modern naval warfare works. And I don't mean to say that like putting those people down, but they really don't. I wouldn't listen to them for advice, folks, if they're saying, oh yeah, this is fine. Nobody ever gets that close to a U.S. warship in a normal scenario, in a perfect world, to start threatening a U.S. warship that badly where every gun on the ship has to open fire to be able to protect the vessel. That very rarely, if ever, has happened in the modern day. And I'd have to say that I'm very shocked to know that they got that close to where those destroyers were in a do-or-die situation where they had to open fire like that to be able to try and make it out from what we're hearing. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And hopefully, folks, let me see here really quickly. Maybe, folks, there is hope after all. Let's see, folks. I'm calling Enforcer Matt on air right now. We're about to see if we can get some progress with this. Oh, let's take a look here. Hopefully we'll be able to see that he joins the call. My voice is connected just fine. 28 MS. Matthew? Are you there? Hello? Oh, you there?
Hello?
Oh my god, what type of microphone is that?
Well, you see, I'm actually calling in on the phone, actually, because on the computer it's not working. So what I'm going to do, folks, is this. Instead of doing this over this crappy mic on the iPhone, I'm going to restart my computer and see if that fixes it. But Enforcer, carry the show on, please. I'll be back shortly.
All right, and a big thanks to Enforcer Matt for giving us an update from his command room down in the engine space of the ship. And it's time for us, folks, to move on and into the rest of our news and our question segments that we do have at this incredible moment. A big shout out to everybody in the armed services of the United States Navy who are reporting back to the bridge from their battle stations through the intercom and microphone system. It's really incredible.
But moving us on onto that whole deal, it is time for us to move on and into the rest of our questions. Because it does look like, folks, for years, everybody, y'all said it's a problem with my computer. It ain't a problem with my computer. Oh, I feel vindicated by this, folks. For the first time ever, nobody can say it's a problem with my computer because my Discord is working fine. So hopefully we'll be able to see that Enforcer Matt gets the computer restarted and everything's fine. This is why, folks, I'm a big believer in PCs, not Apple Macs. That's why, folks. But anyways, moving us on into our next one, we did get a 10 from Music Uploader, who said, Bolton in an interview said he'll do anything for a deal, even if it's a bad one. I took it lightly, but I guess he was right. Well, we've yet to see, but we'll have to eventually find out whether that will be true, and I'm going to wait, and I'm going to let the jury be out on that one until we actually see if a deal is made and what it is, because maybe we somehow end up getting a decent deal, or we end up getting a rough shot bad deal, so we'll have to see. But a huge thanks to you for support. I hope that does address that well, and we also got a 10 from Ty Dobbins. And a big thanks to you for support, Ty, and helping this channel to keep running. And Ty said, what are the chances that Iran goes along with the president's return to a ceasefire? Personally, I think it's low. Personally, myself, I would think it would be low, but it may not be low. It may actually be a pretty decent chance, because from what we're hearing right now, it sounds like both sides are trying to back off and pretend like nothing's going on. And I think that the Iranians are kind of understanding that their position is in the clear to where they don't have to instigate the U.S. into a war, and they basically still just starve us out with a blockade and try and stave off a full-blown war as long as they can, because Iran buying itself time is going to be working to their advantage. It's not going to be working to ours. So I think that they may actually be trying to return back to the ceasefire, possibly, but historically, generally they'd be overtly aggressive at this point and start major attacks, but we're still not hearing of them or seeing major attacks at this moment. So I hope that does address that well. And with that, a big thanks to you once again for support and helping the channel to keep it running. And we also have a 50 from Ghostmorn, who said, thank you guys for all the good work. And hey, thank you so much for the good work. And also, I hope you appreciated my answer to your question, because it was actually a good question. Like, that's why I went out my way to answer the difference between Ukraine and the UAEs. That was actually a pretty decent one. And for using the comedy to keep things light and giving us such a great perspective. Truly, God's work. And I got to thank you massively for the support, Ghostmorn, and helping the channel to keep on running. And I got to say, thank you so much for enjoying it. We try our best to make it informational, a little bit entertaining, somewhat funny, and also well researched. And I gotta say, a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, we wouldn't be able to keep it running, and if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel a possibility. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on and into, oh, wait a minute. Let's see here. Matthew's back in the call. You here?
So I'm back, apparently. I don't know what the problem was, but apparently it's fixed up right now. But yeah, apparently I called in, sounded like I was calling in from a different time zone, actually a different era, actually, not just a time zone. Calling in from World War II, possibly, back during a different time, back during a time where things were a little bit different.
Let me ask you something here. You're saying that the problem wasn't my computer this time, it was yours?
Well, everything was working except for my Discord. I don't know what was going on, but apparently it was a glitch. It said something about an update when I jumped back on the computer for the Discord, so maybe that was the problem.
I gotta tell you, folks, like it feels nice, because every time is your computer wrong, and this time, folks, it wasn't mine. It's a great feeling, folks. It's a great one. But anyways, with that, Matthew, please take it away. We're actually getting on and into the next one here.
All right, so let me press reorganize my spreadsheet here because I'm all out of sorts right now. I'll tell you what, I'm more discombobulated after the Iranians suffered a love tap from the United States forces. But our next one here is going to go to none other than Ghostmorn. And have you addressed that one yet?
Yes, I have actually.
Okay, so let me put a little red X on that. And also, thank you, Ghostborn, for that support right there. We do appreciate that. We also have a 10 from Mantis, who said, "How are you guys so much faster than CNN and Fox? Aren't you just two dudes?"
Yes, we are just two dudes. It's kind of like what is it? Like 3 men in a truck.
Five guys.
5 guys, burgers and fries, 2 men in a truck. It's kind of like that sort of a deal. Yeah, we're just 2 guys. We have basically no running budget. Most of the income we make on the channel really just goes into helping us to live and pay our bills. So we have no staff, we have no budget. We have basically nothing when it comes to material resources like a mainstream network. Yet we're faster. And that shocks a lot of people because they go, how in the world are they faster than the mainstream? And the answer is, folks, is resilience, knowing the field, knowing how to do open source intelligence, geolocation, and also how to provide analysis off of the cuff without having to have an entire team of people write it up for you, and then it's not even good then. Because the thing is, folks, is that unlike major mainstream news networks, that nobody really wants to be there to actually have passion for the job. They're just there to get paid. We actually have a lot of passion for this. And that's what kind of shows through that makes us a lot faster and a lot more accurate than the mainstream news networks, is that we actually are interested in the topics we talk about. I hate to tell you all this, folks, but a lot of the talking heads that you all hear from on most mainstream news networks, they don't have an inkling of what they're actually talking about beyond what somebody in their company wrote them up as maybe a 1 or 2 page summary before they went on air. They read that, and that's literally all of their knowledge on the topic. Most of them read off of a teleprompter, and they're just there to be the nice looking, nice sounding talking head of the show, of that mainstream show that they're running. But they actually don't know what they're talking about. We generally try our best to research and learn about our topics, to actually know about them in great detail, and then we get on here with a huge amount of passion, and that just drives us to be incredibly fast.
And also, they're keeping us hungry, too. We're not making like $5 million a year like some of these news anchors are making. Like some of these news anchors, they got a contract, they got guaranteed income. They're making $5 million something a year just to get on there and read from a script. We're different. We're kind of like the dog in the cage. We're trying to scrap our way out. So, it's a little bit different. They're keeping us hungry.
They're keeping us hungry for more. but that's honestly how we're quicker. And also on top of that, we just know how to do open source intelligence pretty well, and geolocation and whatnot. So generally that's why we're quicker than them, and that's also why we get better information analysis and predictions going than the mainstream ever could, is because we have a lot of passion for it, and we are pretty skilled in doing what we do with the very minimal resources we have. But big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to Miss Paula Thomas, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much for the support, by the way. They said Ukraine is showing exactly why they deserve better treatment from the U.S. And, oh, by the way, my support is in GBP and not USD.
Great British pounds? Miss Paula Thomas. That's quite heavy, 10 pounds, I mean, that's a lot more than $10. I don't know what measurement of weight that is, but big thanks to you for your support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I have to say that Ukraine certainly does show why they deserve better treatment. I mean, there's a lot that they can provide to us and a lot we can provide to them. It could be a very mutual relationship, or we could squander it and lose all of the opportunities that we could be gaining right now from them. And so I definitely agree with you, Miss Paula Thomas. The Ukrainians are a nation that should be allied by the United States, and we should be very big friends with, because they would be very helpful in the modern day. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to none other than, also, by the way, Russia's getting hammered right now. I mean, they're getting hammered right now. I mean, it's really bad. Like, it's a lot of hits going down. But we'll get back to that. Wait a minute. So we have just gotten some Iranian media footage here showing allegedly the Iranian forces launching missiles and drones against the 3 destroyers. Let's take a look at this right here.
Let's take a look. What the hell was that? That was like a Dude, that thing is literally in a ground-based tube like a mortar. What do they do? Fire like a bottle rocket at them?
Oh, I think they might have been too scared to bring out their TEL launchers. They were scared they're going to get smashed if they brought them out by the by airstrikes, maybe. But yeah, that looks like some homemade PVC hood rocket.
Bro, they got out the spud gun and started shooting it at the warship. What the hell? Anyways, let's move on to the next clip that we have. Okay, that seemed to be a much larger anti-ship missile. That seems like an actual conventional anti-ship missile.
Oh, this is definitely Iran. We can confirm this is definitely from Iran.
Oh my god, wait a minute. Wait a minute, hang on, let's count it. So this video's 6 seconds long, and how many? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there was only 3 over 6 seconds. So it's not Mali, because in Mali they average an Allahu Akbar every second. They were averaging 1 every 2 seconds, so certainly not Mali. Like, we have to make that one clear. So a little interesting with that, but this does confirm that the Iranians did fire anti-ship missiles at the destroyer, which we had already been able to confirm by multiple sources at this point. And they're saying that all of them were shot down. Now, I would assume at face value, folks, they were all shot down, because if a single anti-ship missile hits a destroyer, that could be a fatal blow to a destroyer in the modern day, just a single hit of that size. So we can guarantee that no anti-ship missiles hit the Berks. Maybe a drone did, maybe some fire from one of the fast attack boats did, which would be light damage. An anti-ship missile hit is almost always heavy, moderate damage, or heavy damage. Big thanks to Enforcer Matt for finding that footage. What an impressive find right there. And with that, folks, we're on to the next one.
Our next super chat goes to Bendaboard, and thank you very much for that $10 support. They said, thank you guys for the hard work, and this is random, but I just got into metal detecting, and I live in the area of Sherman's March to the sea, and maybe I can find some Civil War artifacts.
Oh yeah, you could probably. There's a possibility for that, actually, because generally an army on the march leaves behind a lot of junk, really, like pots, pans, buttons, everything. So you can actually find some of that stuff. That's actually something that a lot of people don't know about back in the day, is that was one of the easiest ways to find an army, because they would throw out stuff and just drop it behind them the whole time they were on the march. So if you just followed the trail of pots, pans, buttons, random junk that was thrown on the side of the road, you could literally just follow an army without ever directly seeing them. Which is a really interesting thing. So they definitely left behind a lot, and you might be able to find something pretty cool. So a huge thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Moby Duck once again, and thank you very much for the support. And they said, the U.S. desperately doesn't want this to be an act of war and escalation before the China trip next week. Nothing else is going to happen tonight.
You might be right, Moby. You might be right. And a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We've also got a $10 support from 2 Mile Target, who said, how long is the Chinese government going to tolerate the Strait blockade?
Well, I don't really know. Right now, it doesn't really seem like they're putting a humongous amount of pressure on the situation, so they might just try and see that they somehow wait it out longer than the U.S. can and not really force the situation too badly, because they may not need to. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We've also got here a 10 from Richard and also a 5 from Jeff. And thank you, Richard and Jeff, for that support, and we do appreciate that. We also have a 6 from Gary the Great. He said, great show as always. And even though this looks like a super chat, it's actually a mostly free comment.
It's mostly peaceful. But a big thanks to your support, Gary the Great, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. Because remember, everybody, this is the going rule of the 21st century. If you see a protest turn into a riot and they start looting everything and burning down a whole city, that protest is not a riot. It's still a protest, and it's mostly peaceful. If you're in the middle of a war where you said that there is an ongoing ceasefire, and the enemy side keeps firing a whole bunch of missiles at you in an attempt to kill our service members and destroy our equipment and assets, the war is not on, and the ceasefire is mostly peaceful. The rule applies across the board to everything these days.
Nothing bad can happen. It can only good happen.
Oh, man. I got to tell y'all, folks. I got to say, the whole modern day with how people use the English language is such a shame. Because, you know, folks, like, I gotta say, I'm all for a right of assembly and protest in the country, but if a protest turns into a riot, and then they start burning down half the city and looting everything while it's burning down, that's now an unlawful assembly, and that is a riot. You know, just is what it is. I mean, you know, you might support the movement, but that's a riot at that point. There's no other way to, split that hair to get down to that conclusion. If you have a ceasefire with the enemy, and then the enemy starts shooting at you and then shooting at all of our allies, that is no longer a ceasefire. The ceasefire has ended. And I find it so interesting how the mostly peaceful phrase is so lauded by both groups for different means, but both sides use it to the extreme when it's clearly not usable at that point. Something insane to me. But, I guess that's because I have a brain. So, a very small group folks in this country on both ends just don't use it, and they don't realize how goofy it is to say that the ceasefire is mostly peaceful, and while the protesters are the rioters at that point are burning down half of a city and looting everything, it's still mostly peaceful. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Navira Core. And thank you very much for that $50 support right there. Extremely generous of you. And once again, a big shout out for that support. He said, Enforcer Matt, I hope you get some food soon. And me personally, I'm doing okay. I actually got to eat and everything before I got on here earlier today. So I'm actually doing pretty decent, actually. So hopefully Enforcer can find himself a scrap. But Enforcer, what say you?
I got to tell y'all, folks, I got a little secret. I got Buffalo Wild Wings right now in my fridge because I had to get some last night after the show. I was dying, and it was like one of the only places that was open. Pretty opulent prices, though, these days, folks. It was pretty damn expensive for 15 wings. I ate 7 of them and left another 7 in the fridge on a little plate. So I got those to reheat once the show is over. And I got myself some wings. I got them spicy habanero and original buffalo flavor wings, which honestly weren't as spicy as I remembered them for some reason, but they're still very good. Like, I was like, tasty. But still, a big thanks to you so much for the support, helping the channel to keep it running, and hopefully I can have a bite of that once this show is over. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have here a $10 support from Music Uploader, and thank you as well for that support. They said, if we follow a trail of McDonald's fries, will we find Donald?
Yeah, yeah, you might actually find them. You have to try, you'd have to see. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Bunsen, Rock, and Stone, and they said, Elsa Caffeine Fund.
And a big thanks to you for the support. Thank you so much for the caffeine fund and helping this channel to keep on running. And a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And also, I just saw someone ask, I gotta say, man, like, I gotta get some of these because they're like low-hanging fruit. Someone just said, what cities are burnt down? What, were you not around back then? Like, literally, like, we went over to the West Coast. And the damage from some of those riots in LA is still visible because those buildings are still shuttered and still have damage on them from years ago when those riots happened. I mean, you'd have to be blind to sit there and go, well, no, they really were mostly peaceful. They just, busted into a whole bunch of stores like, Versace and whatnot, and were stealing everything out of them, and then caught some of the buildings on fire. You can literally watch it on TV. Like, while we're watching gas stations and stores burn down in front of us, the news was saying that it was mostly peaceful protests. It's like, that doesn't look peaceful to me. That looks like a riot. It's kind of like how, people have, like, this denial of reality with the war right now with Iran, that we're still in a ceasefire, although the Iranians are shooting at us almost day and night, and all of our allies as well. It's that same kind of denial of reality on both sides that makes it impossible for me, folks, to actually sincerely ever say that one political side has everything going on more so than the other, because both political sides these days are so blind and so biased in their beliefs that they can't just look at reality and admit it for what it is. They live in completely different worlds. It's crazy. But anyways, we're on to the next one.
Our next one goes to none other than Veman guy, who put in a 5. He said, it's messed up to say I believe Iran more than my own government at this point. It's so ass backwards. I definitely don't believe I don't believe Iran more than the U.S. government. Even on the U.S. government's worst day, they're still not as dishonest as Iran. Iran literally lies about everything. I mean, Iran will lie to their own mother. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say I wouldn't trust them more than the U.S. Like, at this point, Iran and the U.S. are basically neck and neck right now for the liars competition on who can lie the most about the whole thing. So I would not believe the Iranians as a source over the United States, but I also wouldn't believe the United States as a source over Iran. Both of them have lied so much in this war, there's no way to say that anything either group says is true, and we have to go out of our way to independently verify anything either side says. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Dumpster Mike Media. Thank you very much for that support. They said, I'm curious, could Ukraine drones reach Tehran or inside Iran? And can Iran reach inside Ukraine with any munitions? And what would happen if one attacked the other? And also, you guys are awesome, by the way.
Oh yeah, they could. Like they could actually hit Tehran because from their last attack in Russia, where they attacked Chelyabinsk, the average, I think, the strike range for that was about 1,200 miles or so, somewhere around there, and Yekaterinburg was about the same. So if the Ukrainians tried to attack Tehran, they could actually launch drones if they flew in a straight line from the Zaporizhia Oblast, and they could actually reach Tehran. That's the same distance as Yekaterinburg. So technically, the Ukrainians do have strike capabilities that could hit Tehran, and that's also not to forget that they have FP5 Flamingos that they could fire as well into most of northern Iran and actually hit targets throughout the entirety of the country. I don't know if Ukraine would be willing to do that. Generally, they're more so just a big fan of not directly fighting them, but militarily supporting everybody in the Middle East right now, and I think that's a much better arrangement than Ukraine directly taking on the Iranians and then adding to their air defense burden, which is already the largest in the world every night. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Tyler Gamer, and thank you very much for the support as well. They said, I've been watching you guys for years, and you've really enlightened me for critical thinking and foreign policy and geopolitics. And you're my main source of news, and keep it up, fellas. And LSA and Slava Ukraine.
Hey, and thank you so much for the kind words. And I like to think that we use some critical thinking here. And critical thinking always ends up being not favored by some people in the public because they don't like that you think. They want you to just be a blind follower like they are. And I'd like to think that we have equally pissed off everybody over the years from the left and the right because we just don't bow to either side and we just call it for what it is. And sadly, most of the time we call it for what it is in they're not really doing the best job that they could. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep them running. And I gotta say, a long live the Lee Spring Army and a Slava Ukraini to you. And a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Zalagar, who said, do you think Iran purposely ran the blockade today before the markets closed because they knew that the U.S. was going to attack once the markets closed?
I would say that I would doubt it, because that unfortunately doesn't really appear the way the situation unfolded, at least how I'm bringing the question. But a big thanks to you for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
Also, Veman guy, he put in a 2 just now, said I was being facetious, LOL.
Oh, he was being facetious. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about that. We can't read sarcasm in text. So whenever people put something in, I generally assume that they just mean it literally. Like if they put an LOL behind it, then I'll be like, oh, they're joking. But if it's like put in as just like a flat out statement, sadly, we just can't read, the nuance of like the tone or what was actually meant to convey. But I do thank you so much for the support, Veman guy, and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support that just came in from Zyper Sniper 1, and thank you very much, Zyper Sniper, for that generous support. He said, coffee and food fund for the enforcers, and with all the chaos in the world, how far are we from World War III? And question to the chat, please.
You know, Zyper Sniper, I thank you for the coffee and food fund all the way up there from Norway. And I would say, how far are we from World War III? We're not that far at this point. China is probably the most furthest out one that could turn into a world war right now with Taiwan. Europe is probably the closest to us to being a world war, and the Middle East definitely has some slight ingredients in it that if they were all activated in a certain way in a certain sequence, it could actually lead to a world war. But that one is not incredibly likely, not as likely as a world war in Europe right now. So I hope that doesn't answer the question well. I would say that it's someplace somewhere within the next few years there's definitely a high chance for it, and I would just have to leave it at that. But I hope that does answer the question well, and a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one here goes to Thy Jordan Man, and thank you very much for that $5 support. They said, I love watching the show while eating ice cream and pizza while doing yoga. Do with that as you will, LSA.
Ice cream and pizza sounds incredible right now. Like, that sounds amazing to me. I am starved. I need to eat. I haven't eaten all day. I was up at 10:30 this morning. I haven't had anything to eat since I woke up. But I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. And that sounds amazing, honestly. And that's big thanks to your support and helping this channel to keep rolling. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, I hate to do this. I'm going to read off the next super chat and then I'll have to take a quick break for a second. Something just got delivered to my front door and there's some people lurking around my front door. So I'm not sure if they're trying to snatch my package down there or not. They keep eyeballing my package. I keep
We're
seeing
like
them
punch pirates.
yeah, they're like darting their eyes over to it like every 2 seconds right here. They're just like trying to be inconspicuous. I don't know what they're doing, but they're a little bit too fancy with my package down there. So, and let me read the second one here and I'll have to be right back. This one goes to Music Uploader, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much for the support, by the way. It said, did you guys get a chance to see the satellite image report of Karg Island dumping oil into the Gulf? And could it be a satellite mistake?
We did see that yesterday. I don't know if we reported on it or not, but we did see that, and I'm not really sure what to make of that at the moment. It may have been some sort of a facility issue where they had an oil leak, or it may have been something deliberate. We're just not entirely sure, but we can confirm that the oil leak did happen. We just don't know the exact reason as to why. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we have a 5 from JLW, a 5 from Austin, and a 5 from 2 Mile Target. All of them without comments, but we do thank y'all massively for y'all's support. Y'all help this channel to keep running, help it to be possible, help us to cover this news every day, and we thank y'all for that.
We do appreciate that very much, by the way. Also, by the way, everybody's like, what the hell's going on? I went down there. I went out to go get the thing. And the people had like the most like guilty red-faced look on their face. So I just went out there to go grab it. They're like, oh, hi. I was like, hi, how are you? I was like, they're out here just keep looking at the package. I'm like, who the hell lurks around looking at a package like that? It's like, if you're going to grab the damn thing, just grab it already and run. They were really hesitant. I tell you, they're more hesitant than the UAE.
Damn, man, they were over there in the head repeating the whole thing. We blow up the engine room and then we boarded the ship with ropes from helicopters. We were like pirates. Like they were like, well, that would be really cool to be a porch pirate, to go up to someone's box and take it from them right off of their porch, run away with it. We don't know what's inside of it. It could have been something great, something incredible. I wonder what was inside of that package. I really do. It's a great mystery to me. We have to know.
The food package. They said, sir, it's a rounded package, sir. It's a package that some say they love my package. That's what they say, sir. They love it. They love it, sir. They got it. Yes, sir. They say, sir. But it's like, you should not stare at packages. It's not a nice thing to do. Standing around doors and staring at packages, that could get you arrested.
Honestly, it could. It could get you into a great deal of trouble, maybe even worse. Who's to say? You never know. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to none other than, let's see here. This one goes to Chris, who puts in a 5. And Chris said, guys, I've heard that the blockade is causing Iran's oil pipeline in wells to cease operation. And if their oil lines become unusable, then Iran will lose.
Well, that's a way to look at it, but the same thing's happening to all of our allies right now in the Middle East and has been happening for longer than it has been for Iran. So technically, we're still running out of time faster than they are at the moment, and that's why we're required and forced to take action against them, because we don't have the luxury of time even like they do with the limited amount of time everybody has left. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And also, by the way, I've seen many people asking the question, will there be the normal scheduled nightly stream at 10 p.m. Eastern time tonight? And I have to say, unfortunately, folks, no. At this moment right now, like at this very minute, this is actually nowadays when I start working on putting together the news for the show that runs at 10 p.m. Eastern time, and we are not going to be done with the show in time for me to be able to go and eat anything and then also get back to working and then run the nightly show. So this is largely the show for the day, unfortunately. So we will be running, of course, tomorrow our usual 10 p.m. Eastern time stream, or if something crazy happens in the middle of the day, we'll probably have to run another breaking news stream, and hopefully the timing on that one will work out a little bit better to where maybe we can have a 10 p.m. Eastern time nightly stream like we normally would have. But also, folks, another thing is that we kind of had to pace these. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and doing 2 streams a day is humongously exhausting mentally, like extremely. So generally we like to try and keep it to 1 for the most time anyways. But I hope that does answer that for everybody. Unfortunately, we will not be having a stream later tonight after this one. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from No Other, and thank you for that support. They said, are we losing the war?
Well, I hate to say that the answer to that would be yes, but so to put it in a way that doesn't make it sound defeatist, if things keep going the way they are right now, we will eventually end up losing this war due to economic strain, or largely strategically. In the broader sense, we will end up losing the war. However, there is still time to be able to change that outcome and to make actions that are conducive to U.S. strategic interest and the strategic outcome of the conflict. So, we have not lost the war. Saying we have lost the war is a definitive statement that it is over and we have truly lost. We are in the process of losing this war with the way things are going right now. If we change how we're fighting this war and we change how we're operating with it, we can easily win this war, but that requires the administration to actually take those actions that would be necessary to win the war instead of the slow path of failure like we're seeing right now. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from I Will Eat Your Hot Dogs. She said, sir, bring back the worm. Oh, the juicy worm. KFC, make KFC great again.
I gotta tell you that I freaking love that worm. I was in the White House the other day and I saw an earthworm outside and I went, oh my God, look, it's something that mine can socialize with. I went up over to it and I said, hello, little worm. Let me talk in the worm language of the worm people in Wormland. And I went, and it really understood me. It really related to that. And then I went back home and I had a dinner with my wife and I tell her about this raccoon that I found on the side of the road. But anyways, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Bendaboard once again. He put in a 5. He said, y'all should play Swan Lake during the intro of a breaking news stream, LOL.
Oh, that would be a great reference. That'd be an incredible reference right there. I wish we could. Sadly, we just don't have the rights to it, so that's why we play the same intro every single night. It's because we have the rights to that one. I went out of my way to make that one and have it orchestrated and everything, so that way it would be really high end, but we'd also have the rights to it, so there wouldn't be any copyright issues. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. But I love that idea. That's actually a great one. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Cody, and thank you very much, Cody, for that 5. He said Enforcer Matt came back from 1941, and honestly, it sounded like it. I heard myself on the video or the stream here. Well, once I got kicked off, I was watching on the phone for a second. I was like, wow, that sounds awful. Like that really comes through bad on a phone. So yeah, 1941. I mean, hell, it might have been 1841. But Enforcer, what say you?
And now we can see the Brady up into the cutter with the sanguinary flash. Oh, heavens, he gave him a left and a right hook, and it looks like the boxer is going down for the count. Oh, goodness, the referee is coming up a 1 and a 2. Oh, we don't think he's going to be getting up in a 5 and a 6. Oh, wait a minute, he's getting back up again. Oh, heavens me, look at this, look at him go. Oh, my heavens, look at this. Oh, what a fight, oh, what a fight.
Beyond that, he really did sound like that. He sounded like a sports announcer or like a movie town news presenter from like the 1940s, honestly, on that microphone. It was rough. But I, folks, I never realized how bad phone microphones are for some reason on like call related stuff. Like if you record a video, you'll sound totally fine in them these days, like high definition audio and everything. But then if you ever get into anything that's like a phone call, it comes through so badly, and it just blows me away why that's the case. I don't understand what technologically creates that limitation, but it is something else. Anyways, with that, a big thanks to you once again for support, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Kathy Solar. Thank you very much, Kathy, for that 5, and we do appreciate that. We also have a 3 from Donnie Yarin, who said, shout out from Wisconsin, LSA, and watch out for ticks, though.
I haven't run into any ticks out here on my hikes in Utah at all, actually. I've never seen a single one on me. Which I found very odd because, in Alabama, if you literally just walked off of like a concrete trail, you would get ticks on you instantly. Out here, there's no ticks, weirdly enough, it seems, at least compared to Alabama. And that's very fortunate because I don't want to get Lyme disease. But a big thanks to you for the support and a big shout out to all the folks up there in Wisconsin, a really cool state with this really neat national forest. Wow. That's beautiful, actually. I mean, that's actually really nice. I didn't even know that Wisconsin had a national forest until right now. And this thing's really nice. But a big thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping the channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $10 support from Building, Texas, and thank you very much for the support. They said, could you please give a quick recap on what's going on in Moscow for us latecomers?
There is a major drone attack currently ongoing on the entirety of the Russian Federation. So far, we have confirmed a hit on the Yaroslavl oil refinery, and I believe we also have some air incidents happening in places like Bryansk and elsewhere. Currently, there are drones around the Moscow air defense perimeter. And as a result, the Moscow airspace has been closed, but we haven't been able to confirm any breaches of the airspace in that area or any direct air defense activity at this moment, while my stomach is literally going crazy right now. It's going, wah! But thanks to your support, I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Blaze Gamer who said, any updates on that attack on Latvia? And we do have some updates about that, by the way. It is not clear who fired those drones into Latvia. That's what's becoming unclear at this point. The Latvians are not saying that it's 100% Russian drones, and they're also not saying it's Ukrainian drones either. There's been like a divide inside of Latvia. There's been some people, like I think some of the military people are claiming they've recovered parts of Russian drones, and then some people in the government are saying, well, actually, it looks like Ukrainian drones that went off course. So there's like two different versions of the story going around, and we have no concrete details about where those drones came from. I will say, to me, it seems to be Russian drones in my personal opinion, because it was a lot of them, and also one of them hit an oil site. So, I mean, that seems a little bit strange to me. It seems like it might have been Russian, but that's just my assessment. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to say I would be with Matthew's assessment at the moment on that one, because we can't really tell who it was, like he's saying, and I couldn't really tell either. And the story is becoming kind of a little bit mired at the moment, so I hope that has addressed that well. And also, I saw someone say, and this is actually an interesting thing to talk about, is copyright law. Someone said, there's no rights to Swan Lake or any musical piece older than 100 years. Authorship rights expire after 100 years on authorship, composer, literature, material, and become public domain. But the thing is that you can own the rights to your rendition of it. So, like, for example, with our Armed Forces intro and the Star Spangled Banner, the Star Spangled Banner is public domain because it's generally considered a governmental work these days. It's the anthem of the nation, so the U.S. Government can own the rights to the national anthem. But the Armed Forces songs are also composed by private composers, and they're most, if not all of them, are older than 100 years. The problem with that, though, is that I still own the rights, like me personally in name, hold the rights to our intro, because I went and commissioned an orchestra to play a rendition of those songs, which that's what I own the rights to. I don't own the rights to the composition, The Army Goes Rolling Along, or the Star Spangled Banner, but I own the rights to that specific variation of those songs, which is where that kind of a thing comes in. So you can't take like a copy or a recording of Swan Lake that was done by like the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra and play it on your show, because that will get you a copyright restriction or a copyright strike, because they own the rights to their version of Swan Lake, if you see what I'm saying there. But I hope that answers that well. It's an interesting sort of a rabbit hole to talk about that kind of stuff, because there's actually a lot of misconceptions about copyright law out in the public. But with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Philip Holbrook, and thank you very much, Philip, for that 5. He said, the ceasefire reminds me of Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's no war in Ba Sing Se.
I've seen that meme so many times. I've never watched Avatar to know what it actually means, sadly. But I would have to agree with you. Yeah, it kind of is like that. Like, I don't really know a lot about the show, but it really is like that. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Blaze Gamer, who said, Ukraine is really the sword, shield, and brain of the West. I need the rest of Europe to have a further unified foreign policy, and Herom Slava.
A big thanks to you for support, Blaze Gamer. And I have to say, Ukraine really is out there at this point as one of the premier armies of the world. I mean, they have the most advanced modern warfare doctrine that we see, and it does them incredibly well. And so a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep it rolling. And also, someone said, not again the rabbit hole again, but someone said, good to know, now I don't have to pay you royalties. Well, like, to be honest with you here, just to be straight up with you, if you took the version of the intro that we have on the show and you just like cut it out of a stream and then you tried to play it on your own, that gives us grounds for a copyright strike, or even at some point a lawsuit because of the copyright infringement, because I personally own the rights to that version of the rendition. So that's not really how that works, but you know, interesting sort of an idea. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Oli Oli, who said, well, shit. Oh, I maybe so. We'll have to find out though. It may stop here. It may not go anywhere else. I'll be kind of shocked if it did, but it may stop here actually. But Enforcer, what say you?
And a big thanks to your support. Ole, ole, ole. I gotta say, hopefully we see that they start making better actions and decisions at this point. But a big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Darth Maz, and thank you very much, Darth Maz, for that $20 support, and we do appreciate that generous support. He said, I've never donated to any stream, but I have to show the love to you scholars. Scholars, thank you very much for that, by the way. And he said, I appreciate all the hard work and research, and thank you for the real news, and also the way you do accents. It's hilarious, and keep being you.
And thank you so much for the support, Darth Maz, and thank you so much for the high praise, scholars. I wouldn't say that we're scholars. I would just say that we kind of been around the block a little bit with this whole deal, so we're pretty seasoned on the reporting side of things on how this stuff works at this point. But I do thank you so much for enjoying the news, and I thank you so much for enjoying the accents as well. I hope they're funny, and I hope people get a kick out of them, because I'd hate to know that people were hating them a whole lot. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that it's dressed out well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $10 support from Zyper Sniper 1. He said, if Russia attacked Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, etc., then they face Vikings with guns, so Russia don't start World War III. If they do, then good luck. We show no mercy in the north.
Well, I would hope y'all would, because if y'all didn't, that would be a violation of the Geneva Convention. And we don't want that. We're civilized people. We're not barbarians. But big thanks to your support. And I think the Russians would really be in for it from everybody in Europe if they ever tried to go to war with them. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 12 from Red Neck, and thank you very much for the support. They said this one is for the chat, and long live LSA, and this one is for the chat, and long live LSA.
And long live the Lee Spring Army, and we will take one from the chat. So, Matthew, what do we got?
So I'm looking here for one from the chat, because I haven't had a whole bunch of ones from the chat all night, so I'm not seeing one right off the bat, sadly. Let's see here. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not seeing a live chat right off the bat, so I think we're out of luck.
I see one. I have one.
Go right ahead.
It's from Pete Lehman, who said, are you guys former members of the National Intelligence community? No. No, we're not. We are quite literally, no joke, just a couple of people in our mid-20s who just do this thing for a living. This is our job and our bread and butter. So no, we've never been in the national intelligence communities. And also, by the way, folks, like just to add to that, when this channel started, I had just turned 20. I was not that old when this channel started. I was not old enough to even have a chance to be recruited by a national intelligence agency of any type. So way back then, it just started, and it's grown into what it is now. And honestly, I gotta say, it's really weird to have people, and there are a lot of people out there, folks, weirdly enough, like there's a little crowd of them, that swear up and down that we have to work for the CIA. And I find that so weird, because if they actually knew the real beginnings of the show, which is when I stopped being a waiter at a restaurant and I got bored and I wanted to do something that was like working, because it was the middle of the pandemic and I couldn't get a job because I lived with my parents and everything. They didn't want to get sick and possibly die. So I just did this thing just to have something to do. If they actually knew how this thing had started, they would never even get close to saying that it's CIA run, because it has probably.
Yeah, but you were in college, so I mean, you weren't just like loafing around, like, working at a restaurant. You were doing it to get through college.
Yeah, that's true, but at the same time, though, like, if people actually knew the beginnings of the show, it wasn't any like sort of grand thing where it was come up with at the CIA headquarters in Virginia, where they're like, okay, you're going to go on air and pretend to be a relatable 20-year-old and run this show to cover the news. Like it was not like that at all. It was literally just, I can't work as a waiter. I got to do something, and I started doing this. It's like if people saw that, they would never say that we were CIA. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Mamba Mentality, and thank you for that support as well. They said when the enforcers are live early, something's going down.
You always know it, Mamba Mentality. Something's always up. Something's always amiss, and we're always here to talk about it and cover it. And a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I saw someone say CIA has all kinds of podcasts and channels on here, no doubt. Well, I mean, that's not out of the question. It's just that we're not one of them. There are a lot of people out there, folks, that clearly will say something certain ways and do things certain ways that I could tell you. I'm not going to say who they are, because if they aren't working for the CIA, that could open up the suit. But there's some of them out there, folks, that I highly suspicion. It's like they are definitely working with an intelligence agency here and there, where they tell them, hey, make sure to put out a story this way or to spin something that way. because sometimes it's just a little bit too odd. I think Matthew knows the channels I'm talking about, don't you?
I mean, possibly, maybe. I might maybe know something, maybe.
Maybe possibly somehow.
I didn't do any favors with the wording there, but yeah, possibly, maybe.
Man, like that one time they brought on that former CIA director on like CNN or something. They're like, the U.S. CIA would never overthrow another foreign government, would they? And then the guy went, well, maybe. Like they were like, what do you mean, maybe? But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Smarzik, and thank you very much for the support as well. They said, Ukraine attacking Iran, question mark?
Ukraine, I would doubt it. It's possible. I mean, they definitely could. They have the range, but I would doubt it, to be honest. But a big thanks to you for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 2 from Uncovered Cube. It said, thanks for all you do, and LSA.
And a big thanks to you for the support, and thank you for enjoying what we do. And long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Music Uploader once again. He said, well, how can they verify? What if they believe that the story is the opposite of the original story, but it's really reverse psychology of the opposite, LOL.
That's so deep, I don't even know where to go. Like, I don't even know how to actually try and legitimately answer that. But long live the Lee Spring Army to you, and a big thanks to you for support, Music Uploader, and hope this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Jason Curling, who said, thanks for the breaking news stream.
And a big thanks to you for enjoying the breaking news stream and supporting it so that way you could keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Smarzik, who said, Ukraine to the rescue.
Hopefully, I would hope. And a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on the next one.
And we have a 2 from Bridge Crosser. He said, can we get a chapter of the LSA started in Maine?
I mean, there's people from the LSA all over. There's already people who are a part of the LSA in the state of Maine. There are people all over this country and the world that are a part of the LSA. All you have to do is subscribe. We don't have any like chapters or anything like that. It's a very like loosely associated community. It's just anyone who's a subscriber of the channel is a member of the LSA for the larger part. So if you're a subscriber, you're a part of the LSA. But a big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Plazoth, and thank you very much, Plazoth, for that support as always, and we do appreciate that. We also have a 2 from SCR. He said, brown pants moment, LSA.
I'd have to say those destroyers definitely were going through a lot. But a big thanks to you for support, and with that, we're on to the next one.
I feel like if you're in the military these days, you're doing risky stuff, it might just be a wise thing to go ahead and just wear diapers at that point. Like it might be a better thing just to like plan ahead for that possibly. He said, that's a real thing actually. The whole the whole brown pants moment, that's a real deal.
Well, I mean, a lot of the people in the Congress do it every day. Why can't they?
They're doing it because they can't. They don't have no control. Some of them don't anymore, so that's why they're doing it.
Well, I mean, that's true, but I mean, they still do it. I mean, why can't the people in the military do it? But anyway, so that we're on the next one.
We also have a 2 from Ghost. He said, you guys are badass. Wyatt Logan is still here.
Hey, and a big thanks to you for support, and a big thanks for Wyatt still being here. A big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from C146 who said, hello.
Hello. And a big thanks to you for the support, C146, and a big hello to you. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Solar Independent Solar Systems who said, thank you from me.
And a big thanks to ye for supporting the channel and helping it to keep running. If it wasn't for folks like you, this channel wouldn't be possible and it wouldn't keep rolling. So a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Veman once again who said, excellent transatlantic accent.
And I have to thank you incredibly for that indubious support, because folks like you and your sponsorship of this channel continue to make it possible for us to cover the news every day. We thank you incredibly once again for your indubious support and undying devotion and loyalty to this channel, as it has helped us to keep covering this news day in and day out. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from D-Rock, who said, not to be a weirdo, but what do y'all look like? I look hideous. I look so hideous. They said, "Oh man, he needs a pound of makeup, and he's not even gonna be on camera." Oh man, I'm telling you. But Enforcer, what say you?
Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I was real ugly when I was growing up. Oh man, I sat there and went to trick or treat. They told me not even to wear a costume. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, the other day I walked down the street. I looked at a lady. She turned to stone. Oh man, I'm telling you. It was supposed to be the other way around. I thought Medusa was a woman, but apparently it's me. Oh man, I'm telling you. I went to the doctor the other day. You know my doctor, Dr. Vinny Von Botch. Oh man, I went in there and I said, "Doctor, am I ugly?" He said, "Well, you know, you are." I said, "Oh well, I like a second opinion." I went to another doctor. He told me the same thing. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I get no respect around here. I really don't. But you can see what we look like. There is like a little bit of stuff with our face in it here and there on the channel. There's a couple of YouTube shorts where I'm in it, and I think there's I think actually Enforcer Matt's channel still has the Honey Badger review video on it, and that gives you a pretty good idea of what Enforcer Matt looks like.
Yes, my little channel there, which I gave up on a long time ago, by the way, because I simply don't have the time for it. If you go check out my tab in the chat right there, you can actually go see my channel, and I have a video there where I'm reviewing a pretty cool firearm, the Honey Badger.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. So I hope that does address that well, and a big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have another 5 from C146 who said, "A face for radio."
Oh, that's a good one. Kind of, yeah. I mean, like, honestly, I'm just not a big fan of being in front of a camera. Like, you know, I'm not a huge proponent of that. But a big thanks to you for supporting. With that, we're on to the next one.
Man, I tell you, I love cameras. I love them cameras. I love it. I love when they put those cameras right in your face. I love it. It's just such a great thing, the way those cameras, they said, "Turn the cameras on, sir." He loves those cameras. He's really turning on the cameras. He said, "Wow, look at those cameras getting all riled up." But our next one here goes to Smarzik, who puts in a 2. And thank you very much, Smarzik, for that $2 support. And we do appreciate that very much. In with that, folks, believe it or not, that is actually our last super chat to address right there. The stream is just about 4 hours long. We have one more, though, that just came in from Northform Web, and he put in a 5 Canadian. He said, "A first donation, and keep up the good work, guys. It's not much, but I'm working on something for the LSA."
It's not much, but it's honest work, as the meme says. And I got to thank you massively for the support, because that support's actually humongous. Any support at all, even $1, is huge to us. And a lot of people will be like, "That sounds corny." But it really is huge, because a lot of people don't support YouTube channels. We get something like 8 million views a month at this point, and I think out of 8 million views, we get a couple of hundred super chats over the course of the whole month or something like that. So not a lot of people support at all. So people throwing in $1 even is huge, because it's support, and it helps this channel to keep running. I gotta thank you massively for helping this thing to keep rolling like you are right now. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also have a 10 from Kim H2, and thank you for that support, by the way. So I just saw the Honey Badger pistol review. Matt's a cutie, they say. Oh, come on now. Hey, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. I'll be here every day. I'll be here every day. But thank you very much for the kind words, and also watching the pistol review video, by the way. That's the only gun review I've ever done between this channel or the other channel. All the other gun videos we did before we gave them up because YouTube changed their rules. I was actually the producer of those videos and not the person in the video, so I changed roles a little bit right there. It's honestly a ton of work that goes into making those gun review videos. Really, it's a hell of a lot, but thank you once again for that support. We also have a 10 from Braden, and thank you, Braden, as well, for the 10, and he did not leave a comment, but we do appreciate that very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And a big thanks to your support, Braden, and helping this channel to keep on running. You didn't throw in a comment, but it's greatly appreciative, and we thank you greatly for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, it is time for us, folks, to move on into our live chat questions. Due to time constraints, considering that the stream is almost 4 hours long, we'll only be able to gather 3. And I also have to tell our Morse code decoders that the Morse code was the same as yesterday, as we did not have time to update the Morse code before this breaking news stream today. So with that in mind, we are now on to our third to last question of the night.
I know you see the spreadsheet. I don't have any questions like that. I only had one live chat question I got the entire night, and that was the only one I saw in the live chat.
Man, the hell you mean? I just got to the top. We literally have nothing left. Hold up, folks. I got this. Hang on, Matthew. Step back. I got this. And so with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night? And we have the final question here from Toko8880, who just came in to save us just in time. He threw in a £5 super chat without a comment. And Enforcer, what do you say about that? And I gotta thank you greatly for the support, Toko8880, for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. Because you are the final question of the day. It's not even night yet. Then I gotta thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I'd have to say that your lack of a question is a very interesting question indeed. What is a question even? And that's really more so the abstract philosophy that super chat is reaching as a question. And it's a question I don't think we'll be able to be qualified to answer here on this channel, but maybe some philosophers can perhaps try and answer it. But an amazing thing nonetheless. And with that, folks, we've reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to cover this breaking news for all of y'all. We had a peak viewership today, 20,500 people. And also 200,000 people have watched this show since it started. And I've got to thank you all massively for being here with us and enjoying this show. And a big thanks to Sean Curran, who threw in a 5 and said, nice coverage and thanks. And thank you for the support and enjoying it. And we will see you all tomorrow, folks, at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, hopefully, to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. If there is breaking news, we will be running another breaking news stream. And if there is enough news in the middle of the day tomorrow for a short war video, it'll be me, the Enforcer, that makes that short war video. So with that, everyone, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Ram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, a huge shout out for everybody being here once again. We had over 200 and some thousand people by the end of the stream this evening, that is, and we hope to see you all tomorrow. Now, of course, if something major happens in between then, we will run an emergency live war news stream to cover it. But in the meantime, though, this will be our stream for the day, so there will be no stream tonight, at least a regularly scheduled stream for tonight. So, of course, a huge shout out for everybody for joining us once again and supporting the channel tonight, and we will see you all on the next one. And, of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroem Slava. Get some rest and good night.